I remember you saying your dad was kind of like born again Christian towards the end of your high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was generally the case. I mean, yeah, I would say they did kind of, they forced me to go to church. They forced me to go to youth group. They forced me to go to Sunday school and all that stuff. And then kind of towards when I did decide I wasn't anymore, when I did tell them at one point, and the response, I mean, was less than stellar. The first thing that happened was my dad told me to get out. My mom told me to stay. And then
his victory was getting away from the concrete jungle.
There was no religious message?
I miss that. I forget that if
a river appears out of nowhere and kills you, that means God's talking to you.
Yeah.
You were talking about how, you would, you prayed to God like, oh, I give me a sign. I did that too. I think a lot of people do that kind of become secular later on in life. You always kind of get to that point where you're like, hey, God, I'm really thinking, like, are you still there? Are you actually there? Are you talking to us? I mean, what's going on with that?
Hello, family and friends. Welcome to another Talks with Liem. This is available to the billions around the world on YouTube in 4K and audio streaming services like Pandora, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. If you like this content, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. And now onto the podcast. John, thank you for doing this podcast. You have a sensitive topic, so we don't have your video recording. The sensitive topic is you've left faith. So either, I'm guessing, Christianity, and
why you guys stereotype Christianity?
I think I asked you, John, on our phone conversation prior to this.
Oh, also John is a biblical name.
Yeah, kind of.
Gotcha.
So we're going to talk about the tough topic of you leaving it, you dealing with your parents, the harsh. I wouldn't say, from your story, it wasn't a harsh upbringing, but there are, if I remember correctly. Depends on the perspective, I guess, what's considered harsh and what's not harsh. But to me, I think it's a harsh upbringing, the story of dealing with your parents, leaving Christianity. And then I don't know if we'll get into it. Also, you are bisexual. I don't know if that will play into the story as in how
yeah.
Well, okay.
Oh.
I don't know if faith, well, depending on what time when that happened for you and if that affected.
No, Bible says you can't do it with dudes.
Yeah. So what type of guilt you felt during all that?
I mean, it's not exactly those words, but I read that part.
All right, John. So give us a quick summary, maybe. What age did you start questioning faith, and when did you start noticing maybe your parents treating you a certain way that made you question it more?
Man, this is going right in. John is joining us from somewhere in the U.S. Welcome to the Limley podcast. Let's dig into your
Thank you.
your disillusion of faith.
Yeah. So I would say that it started probably early on around freshman year high school. I started to read a little bit more of, like, say, Isaac Asimov, a little bit more. I started watching a show called The Atheist Experience, which is a big one that I know a lot of people have deconverted through, or, having watched a lot of debates from them. And over time, it just kind of grew and grew, where I started having more and more doubts. And then, junior year hit, and I kind of realized I'm like, I think I'm no longer religious. And for as far as my parents, go, it was, at the time, it was just, they had a lot of things going on in their lives. My grandmother had passed away in my sophomore year, and my grandfather passed away in my senior year. And during that and around that time, my dad kind of became more faithful. He went from being kind of relaxed in his religious beliefs to being a lot more stringent, or a lot more, I guess, what's the word? Probably more devout.
Devout, like you passionately believe.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I would say there's like an element of him almost becoming like almost born again, I would say, in that kind of frame of mind, I would say. Whereas I kind of went the opposite way. I was just not seeing it. I wasn't buying into it anymore. And I was getting to a point where I just didn't didn't understand, like, I went from being fairly religious and believing all of it, and like I remember when I was a kid, like running upstairs trying to get away from the demons in the dark at night, kind of a thing, and so I could get under the covers, because the covers keep you away from demons, kind of a thing. Like the whole monsters under the bed thing.
But that's not really a religious thing though, right? That's just
no.
kids. Okay.
No, absolutely. For me, it was, I mean, aside from that, it was more like I prayed every night, kind of a thing, next to my bed. And, I went to church with my parents pretty consistent.
Metallica talks about that.
Yeah.
What age was where you said you were reading Isaac Asimov books? What age?
Yeah, why are you blaming Asimov for your?
Well, so in freshman year, I had a teacher who actually introduced me to Isaac Asimov as a concept. He was a science teacher, and he started talking about Isaac Asimov because he was really into them, and he wanted to share it with students. And it wasn't like a thing that he was like, become atheist. It was more like, he's a very interesting science fiction author, and I was like, oh. And so I read a story called I think it was called The Last Question, which is this involved story about a computer that is created by humans to answer the question of how to solve entropy. And so over time, throughout the generations, it skips ahead multiple times. And, each time they've improved the machine, and they keep asking this question of how do we solve entropy? And the machine just can't give a sufficient answer, because it just doesn't have all the information yet. And by the time it actually gets the answer, humanity and pretty much everything else is gone. And the machine essentially realizes that it's kind of a god. And so the machine in the end creates the universe again, so that people can continue to ask the question. Oh. And so it's a pretty interesting loop of story. I mean, that's probably spoilers for anybody that wants to read Isaac Asimov short stories, but I mean, yeah, as far as that goes, I think that was a very interesting and thought-provoking story. And I started looking more into his works in general, and I started looking into his life, and I found out that he was an atheist, and he was really big into, say, science. He was a science enthusiast, and he wrote a lot of textbooks actually throughout his life.
I like where this is going. I think I want to pause. So I'm going to try to remember. You're talking about a freshman year Isaac Asimov book. I'm thinking, I wonder if all three of us should kind of vocalize our stance on religion now, just for our viewing, our listening audience to know.
To set the debate.
So they also, so they know if they should hit the stop button on their player right now and leave.
No, they should hit the like and subscribe button right now.
Yes, please
get all the goods.
Please hit like and subscribe. Put a comment. Hit subscribe, because you guys are watching our videos. I see the analytics from YouTube.
If you like good Christian Buddhist believers like myself, please support us with comments about how full of crap Emmett is.
Okay, so I'm not. I was raised Christian. Between the age of 1 to 7, my parents got divorced, and then my mom didn't my mom got custody of me and my brother, and then she didn't push religion on us. So religion for me was never really an issue. I didn't have anything terribly against it. As I grew up, I would say my views on science and the history of what religion has done on science has caused me to view negatively on religion currently. Meaning, like, if you look at I believe it was when Magellan, I believe, with sailing across the world, that stopped about 1,000 years of research on the earth is round. So religion was stopping science from pushing the boundaries of what they thought the earth was. And to me,
you're saying that religion sometimes halts scientific progress?
Yeah, and that really upsets me.
Okay. We could be so much more into the future.
Yeah.
If we hadn't lost all those years.
Yep. And then a secondary thing was later in my life, as I started watching YouTube more. I forget her name, man. I should have got her name. There's a famous woman that left religion. She was, I want to say it was some type of evangelical Christian, I believe, where her religion wouldn't let her leave, and her whole community was working to not let her leave, and then they destroyed her whole life in that city, so she actually had to leave. and she did a TED Talk. She's super famous. She wrote books on it. And when I listened to her, I think it was a 1 hour long TED Talk. It was a fantastic story of showing how bad religion can get. So not that every religion is bad, and not every religious person treats another religious person like that. So I do realize that there are some Christians out there that they live a pretty moral life, and even in my book of morality, the way I would judge morals. So I'm not upset at those Christians. I'm just upset at what I think what religion is doing to society nowadays, in my opinion. So sorry. Let me jump it over to Emmett, and then he could say his stance on it.
I could give my position in less than that time frame.
Sorry, yeah.
I am 45 years old. I was born in 1977. My dad was a son of Irish immigrants, so obviously Irish Catholic, south side of Chicago. He grew up very poor. He also went to like Catholic schools and learned Latin, and a path for him was to go into the seminary. He thought from being an altar boy that he would want to be a priest, and so he went all the way through college to become a priest, but decided at the end that he wanted a family more than he wanted to be a priest. Then the Vietnam War happened and kind of shifted that whole gears. He met my mother in Vietnam because he was a Vietnamese linguist.
But he got drafted.
It's a little more complicated than that, but basically he was gonna get drafted. They pulled it by birthday, and his birthday came up first. But so by enlisting before the draft, he was able to kind of choose his, choose not to be on the front line with a gun. It's like he went into intelligence, thinking it would be a little bit safer, but unfortunately, it made him a spy, and he was in Saigon trying to pretend not to be a big white dude on the streets of Saigon. So
that aspect of it, it's fun. It's funny that we're able to laugh at it now.
Yeah,
but imagine during those times. That's him fearing death every moment, every second of his life during that time.
He always said he was scared shitless every minute on the streets, just because. You never know. You're such a big target. You stick out so much. But as far as sticking to religion, there is a history of some Catholicism in Saigon prior to the U.S. involvement, because there was French visitation to Vietnam. And I don't know if this is entirely accurate, but my view of the Vietnamese culture is that, at least with my mother, when it comes to religion, you can incorporate other stuff, and it doesn't all have to add up and work like a math equation. Like, you can be Buddhist and you can believe in Chinese things, and you can, if you want to bring Catholicism over, like, oh, cool, Jesus, yeah, sounds great. Like, we'll just have Jesus too. You like Easter bunnies? Sure. So my mom, or maybe the Vietnamese culture, will incorporate more and more, like, more religion is better. Not in a strict structural way, but just in, more in a superstitious way, like lucky things, and we want holy things, we want good things, right? So it's a much more vague concept. But yeah, I was raised, Catholic boy, going to church most Sundays. So my parents thought that was the right thing to do, is to have that. It wasn't like they were pushing it, like, you need to be Catholic or you need to be a believer. It was just, this is what you do, right? That seemed like the right thing for them, so they put us in Sunday school and stuff. So as I get into my high school years, I'm doing high school in Bangkok, and that kind of fades away. And I think it's more a matter of instability than, because they weren't that pushy with it to begin with. It was just somewhere we lost the drive to get to church every Sunday. You get distracted by life and doing other things. So So I grew up a Catholic kid, but I was never super, I did all the rituals, right? The confirmations and the confessions. And so I went through the motions, and then, I don't know, it was never a big struggle for me to decide whether, am I religious? Am I not? Do I believe in God or not? It was kind of a slow evolution of, like, you see what everybody around you believes, and you assume that's correct until things start to prove you otherwise. And so, people are always praying to a God, and then you start looking around and like, are these prayers working? Like, what are they praying for? Praying for their kid not to die of cancer. Looks like that kid died of cancer anyway. So then you go, well, where's this God? And I had a friend who, this is just one of like a million examples. I had a friend who ran out of gas a block from the gas station. And she goes, oh, thank God I was so close to the gas station when I ran out of gas. It's like, well, what did God have to do with any of that? Like, did he engineer the car, or did he fill up your tank, or like, did he scheme it so that you could run out of gas so close to a gas station? Or like, why didn't he just give you enough gas if he was going to do that? Like, the whole logic of it doesn't make sense. If you're a logical person, every part of religion and belief and superstition starts to fall apart if you just apply the simplest logic of what makes sense. Like, what are the facts I know are real? What is in the world around me? And then if you're gonna come up with all of these supernatural beliefs, then it doesn't quite make sense. Supernatural means that it's not possible by the laws of nature, right? So that's kind of where I'm at. As like, I like all the good parts of religion where people feel community and they feel connected to something and connected to each other, and people seem to have a natural desire to want to pray and have a lot of these beliefs. But I'm not so against it until you want me to believe something super ridiculous, or if it starts harming other people, right? I mean, there are some religions that drive you to do crazy things, and it's easy to look at and go, oh, that's obviously harmful, so not good, right? So you could go down a whole rabbit hole of all of that. But I'm trying to, I guess, say that I'm not really, I think I'm slightly more atheist than agnostic. Atheist means I don't believe there is a God, right? It just doesn't make sense. Like, it makes more sense that ancient primitive people had some beliefs and the superstitions, and they codified them into books. And if you were in the old days and only 4 people could read, and they could do this thing with a book and it looked like magic, right? So if it's in the book, it must be freaking amazing. So I don't know. An ancient book doesn't quite make something more verifiable to me if it doesn't match to the facts and the realities that I can see around me. I don't know. Is that what you meant?
Yeah. Okay. So John, do you want to kind of summarize kind of your views on religion, and then we're gonna end up doing a deep dive on you anyways. I think we got 3 hours, so we're gonna probably deep dive even more on Emmett's views on religion and my views on religion. So just for the audience that's listening, do you want to just kind of describe
State
yourself?
your case.
Yeah, so I mean, you stated your age, so I guess I'll do mine as well. I'm 28. In general, throughout that whole time of me losing religion, I think I became more of an agnostic atheist, which is the label that a lot of those I've heard: weak atheism, strong atheism, or you could also put it as agnostic or Gnostic atheism. And the same way you can have, you could put it as Gnostic or agnostic theism. So on the level of, I guess in the way that I would define it is agnostic being, I do not know for sure. And then atheism being that I don't believe in a God. So I see them as like separate terms, at least for my, my own intentions. So when you're talking about like agnosticism, I guess that's what I would see it as, is I don't know for sure, but I don't believe, I don't hold the belief that there is a God. Whereas, I will say there are some gods that I will call myself Gnostic to. Ones that are incredibly ridiculous are things that you can definitely prove wrong. But yeah, you would say you're Gnostic too. But beyond that, I would say it's a moving term, because you don't exactly. As far as definitions go, it would just be I'm not entirely sure. I can't say 100% that there isn't a God. But for now, I haven't seen the evidence enough to convince me that there is one. And so that's, where I'm at as far as just the belief system goes. As far as religion goes, I have no problem with religion. In the same way, I would say Emmett said that, as long as you're not harming other people, I don't think there's any reason to be angry or to go after people that are religious. I think it can be a very helpful thing in other people's lives. And for me, it's just not anymore. that's for me. I always sought more of the truth and trying to be as calculating or logical as possible with myself and being reasonable with what I actually believe. And so I can't force myself to believe in something. So I mean, the default is me just not believing until I can find such evidence to convince me. And that's really just where I'm at with my atheism, I would say.
Okay, so should we jump back to your high school story where you're reading some Isaac Asimov books and you're enjoying them?
Yeah. So I mean,
Science fiction is the devil.
that's Harry Potter, actually.
Oh, yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, as far as that goes, I started with Isaac Asimov. I started reading a lot of his stuff, read a lot about his bio, realized that he was an atheist, and I started reading as to why. And he had some good points. And I started realizing, I'm like, this makes more sense to me, a lot more sense to me, and it feels like this is kind of where I'm headed. And so I started watching the Atheist Experience. I found them online because I really like debates. I think it's really cool to be able to see two different sides of a story and hear from each side the arguments that tend to be used in those communities. And so I would say that, I mean, I didn't just listen to him and his, people calling in, because those can be kind of the low hanging fruit sometimes, where you get people that are just like, screaming at him or calling him names, or sometimes they're just saying, they'll come on and be like, why don't you believe in God? And he's just like, because there's no evidence. And they go, but there's evidence all around. And it's that whole thing, where it's like,
Wait, so online you were able to find debates where Isaac Asimov is debating against?
No.
Oh, okay.
Isaac Asimov, I don't think he ever debated. I think he just wrote a lot about his atheism. I was talking more about the atheist experience is one.
Okay.
I mean, current ones, there's a lot of different ones. There's Talkie, then there's atheist experience. There's The Line. There's tons of different ones. You can find YouTubers all over the place nowadays that are atheist. But back then, for me, it was mainly the atheist experience, which had to do with
so like and subscribe to this podcast, and then go find the Atheist Experience if you want more debate action.
Absolutely, yeah.
So Asimov was a prolific science fiction writer. What, in the 50s and 60s? Was that about the right?
Up until about the 90s. His final book was in his Foundation series, which was a really good, like, hard sci-fi series, kind of like Dune, very dense sci-fi.
Yeah, so he's a superstar of the sci-fi world and like a pioneer and a forefather of a lot of modern science fiction. Yeah. I used to enjoy reading a lot of sci-fi paperbacks. What's hard is if you're reading something that was written decades ago, it's hard because it's writing about the future, and it was almost impossible, say in the 70s, to even guess where we'd be now, much less 100 years from now or 1,000 years from now. So it's fun in that they take those explorations, but if you go back too far, then the science fiction is incapable of even knowing that we could carry around like computers in our pockets. So it'll get those kind of details wrong, where you'll be in some fantastic future where you're teleporting around and handing over a piece of paper, in some old fashioned way. So it's interesting to go backwards in science fiction that way. But the thing I was actually going to think about, did you study any L. Ron Hubbard? Because he was also... Yeah, do you know anything about L. Ron Hubbard?
I don't. Do you, John?
I mean, L. Ron Hubbard, that's the Scientology founder, correct? If I'm thinking correctly. That whole thing about Xenu, and I mean, I know some about L. Ron Hubbard. So
as far as I know, he was a science fiction writer. He wrote Battlefield Earth, which was later a John Travolta movie. So a science fiction writer, right? And I don't know if I haven't studied it, but I guess he was at some point. He was like, "Man, I could invent a religion. This is stupid. Like anybody can invent a religion. You just put it in a book." And then he went and did it, and he invented a religion, and he wrote something like Dianetics, I think was the book. And so he made up a bunch of beliefs, and then the Church of Scientology literally went and believed all this stuff that he wrote in a book. And this is in recent times. This was in the 70s or something, somewhere in that time frame that he invented a religion out of thin air and got a bunch of people to believe it. And then notably, Scientology is popular around Hollywood, around the LA area. So then you get some celebrity interaction with that religion. So it's such a weird thing to me that the guy called it and was like, I could do this, and went and did it. So Other than that, I don't really know much about it. That's a very. So I was curious if you knew any more about it, having read up on Asimov. Did you explore?
Yeah, I mean, I do know. I mean, I wouldn't say like I'm an expert on Scientology, but I've heard a lot of things. I've seen a lot of things about them locking children in like rooms and kind of crazy stuff that you're like, okay, Scientology is a little bit worse than I thought it was going to be. Like I thought, a lot of people just think it's going to be some kind of bank thing for a lot of rich people, where I mean, you see a lot of more wealthy people being in it. And talking about it, but
yeah, you hear some element of like people being trapped or kidnapped or held against their will, or some kind of like physical capture. It seems like
I've heard with Tom Cruise and I forget his ex-girlfriend, but where they want to try to get out of Scientology, but the thing supposedly is Scientology has it in a way that, so if Tom Cruise tries to leave, they have a bunch of, it's like kind of blackmail, I guess. They have a bunch of information, whether his finances or his history, and they'll leak it. And then they also have physical thugs, I guess. So they'll send out Scientology thugs to either break his windows, his cars, or windows on his house. Supposedly, that's what I've heard. I don't know how true it is.
Yeah.
It's as of this point, it sounds more conspiracy theory, but I've actually watched a couple YouTube videos on it where they try to show evidence that they show that Tom Cruise and I think her name, she was on Dawson's Creek back in the day.
Nicole Kidman.
No,
Katie Holmes,
I think.
Oprah Winfrey.
Katie Holmes, I think.
Oh.
I think both of them want to try to leave. I might be messing up this whole story, but both of them want to leave Scientology, and there's a bunch of, they say, evidence that shows that they're fearful of leaving and they can't leave.
Yeah, don't break my windows.
So, anyways, okay, back to probably John's story of
sorry.
The Isaac Asimov. Now, I have a question on that. How did your parents treat you on that? Going to school, they knew that you're going to be learning things of probably evolution, science in public schools, and then reading these sci-fi books. Did they say anything to you to not believe those things, or how was it for you?
That's actually kind of the interesting thing to me, is they didn't really, I guess, consider that would be the case. That I would start reading those types of things. Like I said, I was fairly religious. Like my mom knew I was religious. I talked about maybe wanting to go into the priesthood at some point when I was still like really early, young. But I mean, so it was one of those things that for a while I considered myself fairly religious. My mom thought I was religious, and they didn't think I would ever go that direction. I mean,
psych.
Yeah. Exactly. So I mean, yeah. So
did they? I kind of probably missed the beginning. Did they push religion on you through your elementary, junior high, and high school? But yeah, I remember you saying your dad was kind of like born again Christian towards the end of your high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was generally the case. I mean, yeah, I would say they did kind of, they forced me to go to church. They forced me to go to youth group. They forced me to go to Sunday school and all that stuff. And then kind of towards when I did decide I wasn't anymore, when I did tell them at one point, and the response, I mean, was less than stellar. The first thing that happened was my dad told me to get out. My mom told me to stay. And then they continued from then on to give me articles and things. And my mom would send me things, and she'd be like, I don't understand this, but you might, kind of stuff. And she would send me articles that she thought would, help me to convert back.
Wait, when was this? This was when you were still in high school?
This was like, towards the end of high school that this was happening, specifically.
Okay. And what happened? There was a moment where you felt compelled to like sit your parents down and tell them, "Hey, I don't believe anymore." Is that?
Yeah. Like I think there's a point where I was just like, I probably should tell them. I mean, at the very least, maybe I can get out of going to church as much as I do. And that's so I came in. I guess So I went up to him and I was like, "Hey, I got to tell you something." And we sat down. I told him that I was atheist.
And your dad's response was like, "Get out of my house."
Yeah, was the first initial response.
Wow.
But I mean, they've softened on that over time.
Yeah. I'm trying to understand that reaction, because I'm not a parent, but
by chance, John, do you remember that exact day, that exact moment where that all happened? Like, did you walk in the door and you already told them a day before, then your dad was sitting there, looked like he was smoldering or something? Or how did it happen in your eyes? What
Tell us a
happened?
story.
It was all at once. I mean, it was literally I sat them down
okay.
to tell them that I was atheist in general. I was like, hey, so I don't exactly remember how I worded it or what I said, but I went from I think I had been probably fuming because I realized I'm like, my sister's not going to church. Why am I still going to church? And so it's that kind of like, I was still in high school. I was still a teenager. So I was more like, why am I still doing this? I know I'm at home, but like, do I have to? And so there was the part of it where I was just kind of like, okay, well.
How old was your sister?
She's 4 years older than me.
How come? So she was already graduated and out on her own?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're a kid, going to church is kind of torturous.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You got to sit there and behave.
Yeah. I mean, by the end of the whole thing, I was falling asleep and in the pews and everything, and they continued to have me go after I told them I was atheist. It was a big thing for them. They told me, you have to continue going with us, and I did for a while. Yeah. And I just continued to fall asleep. And I was just kind of, non-attentive. Obviously, I wouldn't go up and get the communion anymore. And because I felt that would be disrespectful if I went up and got the communion. I feel like that would just be disrespectful to the people there to say, hey, I'm not religious, but I'm taking this. And so for me, it was more of I would guess it was a stand on trying to be, somewhat moral on not overextending myself in that way.
Yeah. How much of a charade do you want to play?
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not going into the priesthood and then being like, okay, you know what, this was all a sham. Like I'm not going that far.
When I was 12 years old, actually one of my best friends, his dad was really close to becoming a preacher. I remember him wanting to become a preacher, but what that meant, he forced us on Sunday mornings to go to church. But the agreement was, if we wanted to hang out with, when I say we, there's three of us, me, Jordan, and Jacob. If Jordan and I wanted to hang out with Jacob on Saturday night, we'd be forced to stay at Jacob's house Saturday nights and be forced to go to church Sunday morning.
Gotcha.
And that happened so many times. I went to church so many times before during that time, and I took that opportunity for me, being at the age of 7 when my mom took custody of my brother and I, my brother and me, and I didn't have to go to church anymore. I didn't have to think about religion. So around the age of 12, I had to start thinking about religion because I was forced to go to church to hang out with Jacob. And I remember it was after probably like 2 years or something where I was just going to church. Like as a kid, you don't care to go to church, but you just go. Then
your parents tell you to do stuff. You can't be like, no.
Yeah. And after about 2 years, I think it was, where one Sunday morning at church, I started thinking, do I really care about God? Does it actually exist? Is this all some type of community that's causing me to believe it? And those thoughts kind of came rushing at me, and I didn't have an answer. At that moment, I started thinking, well, I don't have any evidence that God exists. I don't have any evidence that these stories from this Bible is actually true.
You thought this at 12?
It was probably about 13, 14 at the time.
Yeah, no, it's very advanced thinking.
Yeah. I wish it would came earlier. So I actually, I would almost say it was out of fear more than anything. At that moment, sitting there, whenever I think the preacher told everyone to close their eyes and do that 5-second prayer or whatever. So I closed my eyes and I said, hey, if there's a God out there, you're giving me no evidence that you exist. Right this moment, I'm going to say that you don't exist. But if you do exist, let me know. Do something right this second. If you don't, I'm going to walk away from your religion, not out of disrespect to you, even if you do exist, but you're not giving me any evidence. That's the exact words I said to myself about the age of 13 or 14. And then that was kind of it for religion for me at that point in my life. And going forward, that was kind of it. I would kind of say that I'm agnostic, because there's points in science where you talk about black holes and the singularity. That one thing, when you get to that point, the beginning of time, or where matter almost seems to not exist anymore, that part science has yet to figure out. So if there is some type of God in there that created the world, which I think it's hilarious when I read the book Hitchhiker's Guide, where that one line is, when God created the world, it was generally felt as a bad idea. I laugh at that because that's how I feel. If you go to science to like all those atoms and all the atoms in the world and black holes and mass, and then to that point, so if a God does exist, I laugh at the Hitchhiker's Guide. I think that's a great sentence.
That based on all the evidence, we can see that there was a singular Big Bang, and that if there was a God before that, then
It was a bad idea.
yeah. Yeah. You know what's funny is scientists are always trying to figure out what happened at the moment of the Big Bang, or what happened before, what existed before the universe came into existence. And it's like, well, I can't imagine there's a good way to know. Yeah, I don't know how do you look back 14 billion years, because as far as I know, we don't know how to time travel. So the best we can do is look at old light flying across the universe. So I don't know. Can you look back before that? I don't know, man. I'm not worried about it. It doesn't keep me awake at night. It'd be interesting to know, I guess.
Just from a scientific thing, it's more about it's what you learn. Like when I do a project, whether it be this podcast, I'm learning. I wanted to do a podcast, but I knew I had to learn video editing. I had to learn cameras. I had to learn lighting. I had to learn aperture. I had to learn so many things that I didn't. So I'm saying if the beginning of time, in this case, is the podcast, I learned so many things on the way there. And I think that's what science is about, education. It's about finding answers. And oftentimes you find answers to things that you didn't anticipate on the way there. So
I feel like there's so many other questions we could be working on than one that is so far out of reach.
I could see some of that, but
yeah,
I think it's good to still go towards science regardless if you know that, if you think you're going to find something good or not.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry, John, back to...
Oh, you
Do you believe in a Big Bang?
I always thought that was a pretty interesting topic, only because, I think to some degree, knowing where we came from could show us where we're going as well. Mm-hmm. And so I think, talking about the Big Bang, I thought that was always kind of an interesting thing. But I mean, as far as you were talking about how, you would, you prayed to God, like, oh, I give me a sign. I did that too. I think a lot of people do that kind of become secular later on in life. You always kind of get to that point where you're like, hey, God, I'm really thinking, like, are you still there? Are you actually there? Are you talking to us? I mean, what's going on with that?
And then you get cocky and you're like, prove it, bitch.
and that's always, I mean, that's an interesting thing to me, just based off of, you have the story of Job in the Bible, which is this guy who was given the Damascus. Job is a different one. Job is the God and the devil having a bet over him. I'm thinking of who is it? I know it's the Damascus Road experience is what it's called. It's essentially God revealed himself to somebody, and it's always the if it was good enough for I forget who in the Bible at this point, then why isn't it good for others? Like, why can't it be good for us to see or hear from God if that was the case? Kind of a thing. And I kind of agree with that. Like, why wouldn't God just make himself known as easily as possible to get as many people to believe in him? I mean, you still have free will not to, if you want to not to,
I know, he could be more popular than Elon Musk.
Exactly. God's got a new rocket.
Check out my rocket, suckers. So something like the Bible, I mean, it's a collection of stories from ancient people, right? So it seems like the most logical explanation based on everything we know. We know a lot of ridiculous people that believe ridiculous things, right? And we know that the most entertaining and the most interesting stories are the ones that propagate, right? Nobody tells boring stories about, I poured my scrambled eggs out of a box this morning and I put water in it and I ate scrambled eggs for breakfast. Like, that's not a story. But if you got some fantastical story with characters and conflicts and all of these superstitious, supernatural, incredible things happening, then that's a story that people will tell again because it's interesting, right? So I think in ancient times, these stories traveled around, and at some point they got collected in writing, right? And in a way, I think humans are incapable of separating entertainment from beliefs. If you present it in a certain way and you grow up believing it, then people, I guess, so when you're a kid, like, people tell you, hey, this is the teacher. You have to listen to the teacher. As a kid, you just do it. You don't think, well, why the fuck do I have to listen to this person? Why do I question everything they're telling me, right? But it's presented to you as this is a good thing. And in the case of most public education, it's generally correct. They're trying to teach you math or something, right? But if you're also indoctrinated into a religion, it's presented to you as, oh, this is wonderful. They care about you. They're going to give you good things, and this is the right thing to do. So for most people, you start off on this foot of, oh, I believe it. I don't have any reason to mistrust the adults that are taking care of me, right? Generally, they're feeding me and trying to do good things for me. So why would they trick me, right? And they're not trying to trick you because they also believe it. So it's this weird cycle and propagation and I don't want to say trap, but it accumulates people.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with children too, because they're looking up to adults. They look to adults as authority figures, people that should have their shit together. They look at it as people that have wisdom, and then these kids are just following it. So unfortunately, religion uses that to its advantage.
Yeah. I could be very critical of a lot of the advice that my parents gave me. But their hearts were in the right place. They were trying to give me good advice, but I would disagree with a lot of it now. Like when I was 18, they tried so hard to help me get a new car. They put down $3,000. They paid $3,000 to buy me that Dodge Neon. But what they really did was they strapped me with a car payment where I would say, well, it's smarter to get a used car as your first car because then you got a lower cost and you're not worried about a brand new car with higher insurance and all this mess. So while they had the best intentions, they wanted something reliable that wouldn't break down. And in their mind, there's nothing better than a new car. In my view, like that wasn't the best move. That there was a better move. So with a lot of things with my parents and upbringing, I could criticize what they did, but I can't criticize their intentions and motivation. They really had great hearts and wanted the best for me. And I think that's where a lot of religion comes in, is parents really want the best for their kids, and they give this in a happy, concerning way, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, religion is saying if you don't believe in God, then you go to hell, and no parent wants their child to go to hell if they believe in religion, believe in the Bible. So, John, when you told your parents your dad wanted to kick you out, you were looking at your sister why she doesn't go to church, and how your parents are harsh on you. What happened right after that? Your dad wanted to kick you out, and then.
Oh yeah, essentially my mom just stopped him. She's like, "Yeah, no, we're not kicking you out." She's like, "Calm down." And my dad was like, "Okay." So they calmed down a little bit after that. I mean, they were very fervent about me going to church. They were very fervent about a lot of different things, and I was very open to talking to anybody. I always have been. I would bring in Mormons into the house, and my mom would kick them out, or like kind of stuff like that. Like I was entirely fine with talking to people. I mean, because I like talking to people about what they believe, even if we don't agree on things. I mean, even just pushing people to think about things too. In the same way that I'm willing to think about things, listening to other people and what they have to say. And I try my best to take in information and understand that, people have biases. We all have biases. I mean, I feel like as a rule, we're all connection driven machines. We tend to make these connections that once we have one idea, we tend to use that idea for other things. We tend to use that to create our other ideas, or to, come up with our own beliefs on things. And it's like this heuristic driven thing where we tend to do our best to come up with the easiest path to truth. But I don't think truth is necessarily easy, and that things tend to be a lot harder to discern than we make it out to be. And that's why, science has taken so long to get to this point, because we didn't know how to do science for a long time in an effective way. And so, scientific method is the best method we have currently to find out truth. Yeah.
So when you say science, do you mean all these highfalutin educated people in their lab coats doing their funny business and telling me what I should believe?
No, I'm talking about the method. the methodology that science is. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that scientists are science in and of itself, or that the results are necessarily science. They are the result of the methodology of science. So we have this thing that, you could be wrong with science. Nobody ever said you couldn't be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But what figures out whether or not you're wrong and what is right is generally the same method. So whether or not you're wrong because of some unknown bias that you might have accidentally put into an experiment, the thing that's going to confirm that is going to be more science. And
you sound like a damn scientist right now.
Nope, just a warehouse worker.
So you finish high school. Is that a turning point for you, or is that a slow transition? Wait, are you still living with mom and dad?
I went back. So, I mean, this is kind of where I'm at right now. I got into a divorce about a year and a half ago. And I finished. Yeah. So we were together for about 8.5 years. By the end of it, I left. I just, she left me for somebody else, and I was pretty much, okay, I'm going home. I'm not dealing with this anymore. So I've been trying to be home and save as much as I can and try and start my life over again. It's that ripcord kind of thing, but I don't know how well it's working.
Well, why did Jesus let this happen to you?
Can you back up on this, on your mom, as in how was she treating you with religion, maybe during elementary and then during high school, and then as your dad is transitioning to born again Christian, how is she reacting to that?
So as far as the early life, my early life, I guess it was a little less, like, we didn't go to church nearly as much when I was really, really young. And as things started going on, I think my mom became more religious, and then we started going a little bit more often until we were going about every week. And then on the other end of things, my dad was he kind of came into religion a little bit later, like more, like I said, devoutly. Kind of near the end of my high school experience. Whereas my mom, once I told them that I was atheist, they both kept pushing articles and things onto me saying, hey, we want you to read this because it seems thought-provoking, and this, it was with the mindset of maybe this will help convert him back. Maybe this will, kind of thing.
What do you think was attracting and drawing your parents into becoming more, I mean, you can be religious or you can have beliefs, but it sounds like they were getting more involved and more active.
I was thinking this question too, but we'll let me inject my thoughts. I believe us humans, we're looking for the path of least resistance, even in life itself. So if for whatever reason, if whether it be John's parents or some other parents that didn't take religion seriously on a daily basis, but then they find it just easier for them to deal with their children, deal with their life, to live their life in a community. Whatever they find, I feel like people are just looking for something that they're comfortable with, whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
To them, it's right, and that's why they get attracted to it. So anyways, I guess I'm just saying I want to ask John that same question, and John, don't try to. I guess I want to say the reason why I just said what I said.
Don't lie to us.
No, just openly say what you think about your parents. I think every story is going to be so different.
Well, yeah, I was curious what attracted his parents to get more, because I was kind of coming more from the, if your parents are a religion, they introduce you to the same religion, right? And if they go to church every Sunday, they take you to the same church every Sunday. So there's a very easy transition and indoctrination there. But in John's case, it sounds like he's just describing something that's attracting or pulling them into the church or the belief. So I was curious. Tell us, John.
So as far as my parents go, I mean, I love my parents. They're still my parents, my mom and dad. And it's one of those things that I respect, that they really, like, I guess I respect people a lot when they want to do the best for their kids, when they're trying to, bring them, and that's what my parents are doing. They're doing what they think is helping me. Even though they're giving me articles and things, and I might, sometimes it might annoy me. I mean, the fact is my mom loves me, and she wants me to go to heaven with her. She wants me to be in the good place. She wants me to, so I mean, that's the thing, is it's kind of around that. I mean, as far as why they became more religious. I mean, part of it is deaths in the family. It might have to do with like I said, my grandparents having passed around that time. They kind of became more religious. I think part of it was to connect more as a as a relationship between them. I think that was a helpful thing that they connect really on now is religion. I think it's helped to enrich like their marriage, which I think is good. But I mean, yeah, the reality is it's, I think in general, and this is, I think, as honest as I can get, is I'm sad, I guess, that they aren't and more questioning in their own beliefs, and over time they've become, I think, more and more like what's the word for it?
Faithful,
like set.
Yeah, set. Yes, that's kind of where I'm going. Like, they're
Yeah,
more
but
set in their
if they
ways.
get all these wonderful things out of this structured church, John, why can't they just believe this ridiculous thing and let them have their fantasy? It's all good, right? What's the downside?
It's for me, and it's, so I would agree with that on the basis of not being a detriment to others. And I would say my parents' beliefs tend to lead them to vote in a certain direction. It tends them to believe that people are a certain way, that in general, they've become a lot more black and white in their beliefs, so that other people are evil, but the people that are on their side are always good. A lot of times that's kind of how it feels talking to them. And that's, I feel like,
are you alluding to kind of Republican leanings?
I wouldn't say it outright, but
that's the reality in America, right? The more Christian you are, the more typical you are white or Republican, rural versus urban. There's a lot of division happening in our nation that we can see. So it's weird that you can see that connection, because I'm sure when you go into a church, I don't think they're in there saying like hate other people or do stupid stuff or we don't, I think the churches are typically apolitical, but then you end up somehow falling in with people who are politically motivated. So I don't understand that, because I don't know. I mean, are they saying political stuff in churches? Are they telling you who to vote for or pushing any agendas? Well, I guess you can see it clearly in abortion, right? So abortion was something we had generally been against as a nation for a long time, primarily because of religious beliefs, right? And then sometime in the 70s, there was a giant court case that says, hey, that's not correct. Religiously, you can't restrict something. So there's a historical case called Roe versus Wade. And then now, recently, we have states going back the other direction saying, hey, I as a state want to outlaw abortion in some fashion. So it's almost like regression from this progress that we had in the past 30, 50 years ago now. Fuck, I don't even know if we're talking about stuff in the 70s, you're talking like a 50-year time frame. So you could say we're moving backwards if we're starting to believe those things again. I don't know. How do you feel about that? It's not a very clear question. Sorry.
That's okay. I mean, as far as it goes, I would say in general, yeah, it does feel like we're kind of moving in the opposite direction. I mean, in a lot of different ways. I myself I would consider myself like liberal, but not necessarily Democrat. I'm more likely to vote for somebody that's not trying to restrict rights as much as allow. But I mean, at the same time, I think you're right, though. I think during the 70s, I think that was a big time where things started to change, and I think it had to do with Reagan. I think it had to do with Reaganomics. I think it had to do with the fact that, I mean, you can look at the 70s and see how we had I think it was a 70% tax rate on the rich at the time, and that has gone down significantly. Like, they don't even pay taxes in a lot of cases, and it's because a lot of different factors, obviously, like the whole Panama thing, them sending money abroad and all that stuff. But I mean, that all plays into it too, I would say. Like, it's all special interest stuff. It's keeping
if
the
you
masses.
make enough loopholes, then there will always be a path to avoid paying taxes.
Of course, yeah.
all kinds of silly stuff. None of it makes sense. It's just laws written by lawyers and politicians, right?
Of course.
Like as a realtor, I can have a vehicle that's over 6,000 pounds, and the weight of the vehicle classifies it as a business vehicle. So, why it doesn't make any sense, but then you can get a big tax write-off if you go classify that as I haven't, but you could. But my next truck, I will make sure that it's exactly over 6,000 pounds. Yeah. So I'm looking at Jeep Grand Cherokees, and I'm like, they don't weigh enough. So it's insanity, right? It's like, do you want to take this giant tax write-off? So there's such a myriad world of tax loopholes and things you can do to avoid paying taxes. And then, people go, oh, it's fair. It's available to everybody, right? Yeah. Not if you're just a working schlub and you get a paycheck. It's a different world. So I'm curious about this connection from religion to politics. Because one of the founding principles should be the separation of church and state, right?
Yeah, I would agree in general. I think that's a big thing is having the ability to understand that your religious beliefs shouldn't infringe on other people's rights. And I think that's a big thing with, say, the gay marriage. I think that's big with the abortion rights stuff. I think all of that plays into religion and saying, we have so and so beliefs based off of our I mean, not even necessarily the Bible, because to be fair, I mean, in the Bible there's talk about how a fetus is it is considered less valuable than a person. It rates children, fetuses, women and men. And men are at the top, women are second, children are third, and then fetuses are like literally considered like not even human by the
fraction of a child.
Yeah, kind of a thing. Like, it's kind of crazy, and so that's always interesting to me. But I mean, as far as things like homosexuality are, I think that's rough because people don't really have a choice in that. You have your I mean, you just get your sexual orientation like when you're born, and it's as far as it goes. You either are that way or you aren't, and you can't decide to say no, I'm not that way anymore. Yeah, that's why I like the.
Yeah, you don't get a choice. Like, I can't explain to you the things that give me a boner. It's different for everybody. There's some people that are into feet, right? There's some people that get aroused by feet in some way.
Well, even the common ones say boobs. I like boobs, but it doesn't. When I try to think about it, what is it? It's a round object of fat. Why do I like fat there, but I don't like it in the stomach?
Because there's a nipple on it.
Well, it just doesn't make logical sense unless you connect it to evolution. And
what if we put a nipple on the belly? Does that make a giant third boob?
Yeah.
You gotta think that dogs probably find that pretty hot.
No, only if it's in 2 rows.
Yeah, exactly.
I think so. Being 45, when I was younger, big butts weren't a big thing. You had Sir Mix-a-Lot brought about a popularity. I think J-Lo popularized big butts, and then Kardashians. So at some point, you hang around with a lot of young guys, and they're into big butts. And like, I don't get it. I'm like, looks like a big fat butt to me. Like, what do you do with it? Like, what do you? It's weird because there's an arousal there, right? There's an attraction, there's an excitement in the way that young guys get. And I don't get it. I mean, like you said, what's the logic of it? Because it's strange culturally because it changed during my lifetime. This popular or common attraction changed, and in that most young guys now are into big butts. And I don't know, what do you do with it? Like, do you smack it or watch it twerk? Or
the closest thing scientifically, we're probably going way off on tangents, is the
this is why Jesus is bad.
The ratios, like, we tend to like curvaceous women. Most human scientific or statistically speaking, most men like curvaceous women. Mm-hmm. And statistically, on top of that, studies and surveys show the outrageous curvaceous women most men like. Like, you could get some massive bust, small stomach, small waistline, huge hips, and there's, I forget what the ratio is, like 0.75. And if you go to a bigger, like 0.8 ratio to stomach to hip, stomach to hip, and men like that more. So survey obviously shows that.
So it's not like being obese, because then you're just round and globular, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of having
some type of ratio.
You must have a small waist to accompany the large other parts.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, totally
Anyway,
illogical.
so let's get back to religion. Maybe we just debunked what is good about science and humans through that conversation.
Well, no, we know that there's some psychological trick going on in the brain, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There's something men aren't aware of happening in the mind.
Yeah. Well, let's connect that with religion. There's like we seem to notice that people are attracted to religion at an early age because they're kids, they don't know, but as a older adult, if you aren't well rounded in education, or you haven't gone to college, or you maybe whatever education you had in high school, but the less education you have, I want to go on a limb and say you're more likely to believe religion easier. Not that you'll believe a religion, but it's easier to convince someone to believe religion. So I think the brain, we're just so easily convinced into things. I think that's just a problem, liking boobs, and going towards religion.
Why is your university better than my church, though? Why do I have to listen to your nonsense? I like my nonsense.
Because the university it's brought better medical care, better food, better advances, and we can use a scientific method that proves and more importantly predicts. That's actually a huge thing in religion, I think, where it doesn't predict. I got that from
predicts you're going to go to hell.
But that's the only thing that it's able to try to predict, and it seems, at least right now, it seems wrong. But there's not enough evidence to prove that's true. But shoot, I forget where.
But I don't need all that mess. I'm just going to drive my electronically controlled brand new pickup truck down to the church, and I'm going to send you a picture of me on a text message with my gun in front of the church.
Playing devil's advocate. Well, that car was built by some science. That phone was built by some science. So you're either choosing to ignorantly benefit from science and then embracing religion, or you could just embrace science the whole way.
So the Amish have got it right.
I don't know. I don't know much about the Amish people. I mean, the stereotypes, like they don't use electronics, but are they happier? Maybe, on a happiness level, maybe they are happier.
I think they do this thing where you can go be wild for 2 years and then choose to come back.
Oh, Rumspringa.
Oh, you know all about it. Tell us.
I know. I mean, I know a little bit. So, I mean, as far as it goes, it's this big thing, and it's actually funny because most people tend to go back, but it is this whole thing where it's called Rumspringa. You go out for on your I think 16 or something like that.
That sounds a lot more fun when you call it Rumspringa.
I know, right? It sounds like a great event. It sounds like you're going out and you're having the funnest time of your life.
Party, yeah.
I mean, and some people do, and some people go out and they just see some things and they come back and they go, "That was the devil's work," and other people are like, I'm gonna stay out of that. I'm gonna go out into the world now.
And they're delicious.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be honest, their blue cheese, it's top notch. But but yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see like that you do have that instance sometimes, and sometimes you're just too indoctrinated to get out of it. I mean,
well, it's hard to leave your family and your community and all your friends and everybody you grew up with, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's cutting off an entire social system it's like cutting off an arm or a leg at that point, because it's everything, it's like lobotomizing yourself almost, like you're suddenly having to start anew,
Yeah. Can you go out into the world on your own with nothing and just start fresh? Can anybody do that, right? That's hard for anybody to just jump out there, start from zero in every aspect.
And when we do have people that do that, like say Chris McCandless, I mean, you have people who they die in a forest somewhere. I mean, that's sad.
Oh, he went too far. Yeah.
I mean,
zeroed out too many advantages. Wait, this guy went to the forest and was like, "I'm going to be a caveman."
Yeah, well, so Chris McCandless was a guy who I read this book in high school, and there was a movie and all this stuff, but it was an actual story about a guy who he left his hometown, he just cut off contact with like everybody he knew, and he just started roaming the United States. He went from like city to city, town to town, and people always like, he's a genius, he's the smartest guy around, and he just pick up jobs like that, and then he got to a point where he just decided he wanted to live in the forest somewhere, and so he went. I'm abbreviating the story. I have no idea if I'm missing some important.
Sounds good so far, yeah.
Yeah, probably missing a lot of stuff, but he ends up going to the forest and lives there. But he didn't have the provisions or the know-how how to actually like live in the forest.
Yeah,
and at the same time, I think a river came through that he didn't expect to like suddenly like appear, and it was one of those things where it was like if I remember correctly, it was like a seasonal thing where this river would appear during a certain time, or at least it would get more violent, something like that.
Yeah.
And so he wasn't able to go back, and he pretty much starved to death out in the wild after all of this, cutting off contact. And so it's like one of those things where you have these horror stories as well coming out of people just leaving places. But
it sounds like a biblical story.
What was the name of that movie?
It was Into the Wild.
Oh, okay. And if I remember, I watched that. It's been so long. I vaguely remember that the tone of the movie towards the end is you're saying, people are thinking, oh, this guy left the concrete jungle, he left the 9 to 5, he left that unhappy life to live out in the wilderness, to get in touch with the wilderness, to get in touch with what's in your soul. And that movie kind of it portrayed that feeling. So at the end, when he did die, you didn't feel sad because
that was his victory.
His victory was getting away from the concrete jungle.
There was no religious message.
I missed that. I forget that if
a river appears out of nowhere and kills you, that means God's talking to you.
Yeah.
I don't think it was religious necessarily, but I mean, I think he just was very unfortunate.
Maybe God was trying to give him fish, and he overdid it a little bit too much. Too many fish.
Was that? Did that story? Do you remember? Was that story just his journey in that way, or was there a religious undertone? Do you remember at all?
I don't think there was. I mean, it was literally just a retelling because it's an actual thing that happened. Like, this guy went out, he left his parents, he left his friends, he left his family, and he went to just different places and met new people and talked to new people. And then he decided to live in a forest and didn't go so well. I mean, and that's kind of the rough part, is like, you don't expect nature to be as harsh as it is. And I think we know nowadays we do live in concrete jungles. We live in these suburban areas where we don't have to worry about the harsh elements. And so even going camping, it's like, oh, I have my electric stove, I have my my lantern, I have my sleeping bag that keeps me warm under 30 degrees. And he just kind of went and lived in a van in the forest. And that's a sad end to have, but I mean, yeah.
On the just random thought on the going camping, I feel like there is a psychological. This is way off topic of religion now. I'm venturing way off.
Do you find God when you're camping?
I would say I find more. So we evolved as apes, living in a forest, probably in that forest or that savanna. You're looking for food or you're feeling the sun, you're putting your feet in water, you're swimming in water from time to time. There's something innately there for me that I feel innately there. There's a connection. Do I want to be fully in nature? Do I bring a portable stove with me? I bring
all this food from the supermarket.
I bring so much food. I bring all this warm clothes that I could survive a 0 degree winter. And even bringing all that gear, at my last trip just a few weeks ago in Yosemite, it was going to snow on our last day, and I was like, let's cut our trip early. I don't want to.
I can't do this.
No, it wasn't. No, it's not that. It was that we physically had everything. We had the 0 degree sleeping bag. We had everything we needed, but it was. If it rains, it's going to get slushy ground, the dirt, and
be very inconvenient.
Inconvenient to roll up the tent and with a little bit of water in there. So that was actually the reason we cut it off a day early, because of that. So as much as convenience is there, but I do wish more people would be in tune with their feelings or their body, because if you do enjoy those things, go do those things. If it feels good to the body and you're not hurting anybody else, go do it. Because when you're in this concrete jungle, I believe there's something mentally is going on here, in my opinion. And everybody, I mean, we're about to have, I think, a psychologist on our podcast tomorrow. Maybe I'll ask her about it. But with these mass shootings going on, I wonder how much of it is just through unhappiness. It's not unhappiness, but as society, we create these social constructs of a concrete jungle, working 9 to 5, and you're not experiencing what the animal nature in you needs. Catching food.
Are you saying you're very close to being a mass shooter?
I'm saying I'm further, because I'm looking at my feelings and experiencing these things that my body seems to say, hey, it's really nice when you go out in the water and experience the sun and smell the trees. Something is going on somewhere psychologically, some type of endorphin, whatever it is. My body is enjoying that. And I wish people would listen to that and heal that beast in them.
John, do you have an opinion on camping versus mass shooting?
I think you should always bring a gun camping, just in case.
Because of bears or because of people?
No, I'm actually kidding about that. Don't bring a gun camping. Not unless you actually think you're going to encounter like something big. I mean, yeah. No, I mean, I've been camping more than a few times. We had one guy that was very conservative that came with us, and I remember he brought his pistol, and everyone was like, "Please don't bring your gun." Like, why are you bringing your gun? There's no reason. And he literally got drunk one night and he shot it outside. We're like,
oh man, yeah. Don't listen to that beast inside you when it.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're drinking.
Yeah.
I like how shot his handgun in the air is don't listen to the beast.
Yeah. Reminds me of Yosemite Sam, you know, like.
Yeah. Well, no, it's interesting because you started with he was a conservative guy, so there's this link to guns, right? It's this weird conglomeration of religion, guns, conservatism, republicanism. These tendencies, these things are kind of grouped together, and they tend to run in overlapping circles. So yeah, it's so strange to me that yeah.
I get that. I mean, yeah, as far as I think in general, that's a big part of it is I think a lot of special interest tends to fall into politics. And I think that's the rough part is in America. I mean, you have the 2-party system, and it's hard to get away from that because, I mean, I've never seen a third party candidate win a presidency.
Yeah.
And it's like, why do you always have to have the 2 choices between, you know, kind of a shit sandwich and a shit sandwich with a little bit of caramel in it? Like, does that really help? Yeah. I'm still eating shit, you know?
It sounds like you're describing a very rigged system.
Oh, I wouldn't, you know, say that explicitly.
I would say I don't believe in American politics the way I don't believe in religion, in that it's all a sham. It's all a scam. It's all rich people trying to take your fucking money. The minute you choose a side, you've already lost. Pick your crook, because either one is going to rip you off. And they're going to write laws for rich people. They're not going to write laws for you. You know, I've seen it over a lifetime of being in America. I'm 45 years old. I was born in 1977. I saw Reagan. He was an inspiring political leader because at least he seemed like he believed in good things and was trying to do what he believed was right. And everything since then has been liars and scammers and crooks. And it just added up. Like, look at the track record. Why do you ever vote for a freaking politician? Because he believes the hot button topic that your side believes in? It's such a stupid thing. The minute you choose a side, you've already lost. You're committed to choosing one of these crooks that is backed by a multi-billion-dollar political system. And that's why the independents can't win. That's why somebody who cares about you can't win. That's why somebody who does good things. You know, why are we choosing from these lawyers? Why are we choosing these politicians? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, why are we choosing people that do community service on the regular, that actually care about the community, that, you know, in their track records actually go out and do things for the community or talk to them or have actual conversations? Because if we look back at any of the politicians we've voted in the past 10 years, that's just not the case. Like we have, I mean, it's one of those, I would love to see, honestly, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez run. At some point, I would absolutely vote her in if she ever comes in. That'd be like my first choice.
Is it because is she a person of conviction that is not voting based on money? Is it?
Yeah, Yeah, it seems like she cares, and that's like one of the few things that I honestly, it's the point where like you get burnout from voting for politicians just because they don't care.
Yeah.
None of them do, and there's very few that you can tell do, and it's like I'll say it, Bernie Sanders, big one. I mean, I really wish he became our president at some point, because I would love to see what he actually was able to do, or at least able to show the world that we are, more civilized and not just about, entertainment value at this point. And that's the rough part, is it's like we vote Joe Biden in because he's not Trump, because he's it's like he's not going to do anything. And that's what he has done is nothing. It seems like, at least it feels like that. I mean, I'm sure he's done a few things, but it definitely doesn't feel that way. And I would
guess that the president position is largely a figurehead position, in that you can be president and not get much done if Congress is not backing you up. Then what can you do, right?
Oh, for sure.
Like Trump couldn't get a border wall built in 4 years, so that's. I mean, he campaigned on that, right? Wasn't that his? Let's build a freaking wall, and I don't think he got close.
They started it. It just didn't work out.
Here's the thing with walls. They don't work if you don't finish them.
Exactly.
If you have 10% of a wall, you have zero wall.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you can walk around it, it's not exactly the best. I mean, it's kind of one of those things that I think politicians tend not to care, and I think we need more that do. And I think that's kind of what's happening right now, because people are seeing that more. And I think the younger generation
care very much about money, John.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. I think more people now, having seen what in the last 5 years, I think a lot more younger generation are coming out and trying to run for office. Like I've seen a lot more people going for mayor that are, really young, 20 years old, 20 something, and they're doing it because they want to see the change. They want to make the change themselves and be that change, which I think that's good. That's admirable. And but it's hard to see. I mean, you don't, it's all about who's going to be voted in and who's not. And it's hard to really tell when the reality of it is you have the special interest groups that are going to be running campaigns against you, that are telling just so that they can get someone in that's, a corporate shill that's able to take that money and run with it, and that's kind of the sad part right now in the United States.
Let's jump back to religion, if you guys don't mind.
I like politics.
I do too. I love.
Sorry, yeah, I get into it.
If you could kind of envision a situation, another universe where your mom is still religious, but has worked with you for you to be able to not be religious. How do you see that, or what changes? Like, describe that for me.
No, she can't believe what she believes and let him not believe it.
She'd have to believe it less, I guess. Anyways, if you kind of get my vague question, or feel free to let me know if the question is too vague.
No, so I'm trying to think of how to answer it, actually. As far as like,
well, you got to talk about the dude's mom.
I'm actually so my train of thought is, when I was thinking about this question, I'm thinking as the YouTube audience watching or listening to this, or Spotify audience listening, they may come from a religious background. They might be in it currently, or they may be out of it currently. But if they are currently in it and want to get out, I'm trying to think of just conversations that would help them think about their situation in a different light. Maybe think of how to deal with it and whatnot. So that's my train of thought.
No, I mean that's a fair point. As far as like in a different universe where my mom wasn't, say, as religious, or she's still religious, but not coming after me, or not sending me articles, I think the difference in how to deal with that is just a matter of I think. I mean, it is pretty. I would say it's pretty vague, but it's the idea of like how different would they be? Like, is my mom not worrying about me going to hell anymore? Is she? I mean, I guess on some level, there's also the whole fact of like, my parents don't believe like things that I would consider somewhat basic, like evolution is a thing my parents don't believe, and that's something I found out this year. I had no idea that was the case. But I mean, with an alternate version of my mom, would she believe in evolution? as a religious person, because most people do. It's a very common thing at this point to accept science and to accept the current accepted scientific discoveries that we have, or scientific models that we have. Most people aren't going to turn around and be like, gravity doesn't exist. I mean, it's there. We still have the theory of gravity. We have the theory of evolution. We have the theory of bacteria and what is it? The theory of most medicine is based around theories. Like, it's really what it is. And our technology is based around theories. Like, the theories are the most, highest form of accepted models that we have because of the evidence that surrounds them. We have so much, like a preponderance of evidence is what we would say. I guess someone would say. And that's kind of one of those things, like, sometimes people don't believe those things. We currently have a massive flat earth movement that is interesting because flat earth wasn't really a thing back in the 1700s. Like, there was not many people that didn't believe, and it started with 4chan. So it's like the internet got this whole thing started with flat earth, and it's become this religious thing, which is incredibly weird because it never was a thing, really.
Do you see an inconsistency in your mom where she will believe in all these things in the Bible and all these things in the religion and in this group of beliefs, but not believe in evolution, right? Because that group is anti-evolution, right? Mm-hmm. But then your mom will still carry around a cell phone. And if she gets sick, she's going to go to a hospital, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So cell phones and hospitals are pinnacles of science. It's engineering and learning and data, and it allows these amazing things to happen that are not possible with religion, right? Religion doesn't create medical science. It doesn't create CAT scans that can detect cancer inside your body. Mm-hmm. So it's a weird thing to have these these beliefs do not jibe. These are conflicting beliefs.
Yeah.
So how do you see that occurring with your parents? Did they just
as far as my parents go with that, I mean, in the past few months, I've heard my dad, especially with the whole COVID thing, over the last couple of years, I had a conversation with my dad multiple times over it, my parents multiple times over the vaccines, which they've accepted vaccines for years. So it's interesting because that is based off of a lot of, medical science, and based off of, a lot of that. So it's interesting because they're not accepting this current vaccine. But then a crazier thing that goes along with it is my dad has, and he said this directly to me, is that he believes he knows more than doctors.
Oh yeah.
And I had to be like, how many hours did you study at school? Because doctors spend like 10,000 hours like learning this stuff, and you've not even spent like probably 5. I mean, it's one of those things where there's this massive disconnect where you feel like, how are you justifying your belief, and is it really rationally justified if you're not even at all studying the same amount that you're saying these other people that know less than you do? I mean, there's this whole factor of like, you could be studying the wrong thing, but I mean, they're the ones that are currently and doing the most, not only like the most accepted, but the most effective methods of helping people. And whereas my dad looked at an article online for 5 hours that said something about, vaccines that he may or may not have understood, and then turned around and went, well, that sounds right. And so it's one of those things, like, my parents are kind of that way. They look at these videos and they don't have the same level of scrutiny for things that don't conform to their beliefs. So if it's something that's against what they believe, they're more likely to look into it and find things they can say, this is why it's wrong. But not so much on the things that they do believe. And that's the thing that frustrates me, is it feels like they're just unwilling to question themselves and question what they do believe, because people are so afraid of being wrong, I feel like, and especially in this day and age where you can't be wrong. Wrong is bad, but I mean, everyone's wrong. Nobody knows everything.
Wow.
I'm pretty close, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But,
most of the time.
Yeah.
You've mentioned a few times that your mom will send you articles that presumably she's trying to help you, right? She's trying to get you to change your mind. She goes, hey, here's the proof. Here's this is going to help you see it my way, right?
Yes.
How do you respond to those? Do you ignore them, or what is it taking the form of?
So if it's an article, I will actually read them. I'll read them. I'll look up. I'll look through the sources. I'll comb through the sources to see where they got them from. And I did this with the whole COVID thing too. Like they'll send me sources. I'll look at them. I'll look at what they're talking about. I'll look at where their sources came from. And then I'll scrutinize them and see if they're, PhD, if they're related to this field that they're talking about, if it's taken out of context, and those things tend to be the case. Like that's really what I see a lot of when my mom sends me those things, and she's not looking at the sources; she's just reading it and sending it to me. But at the same time, when she does send me like a book, I'm pretty bad about reading books. So to be honest, like over the past,
nobody got time for books anymore.
I feel bad because I have so many. I actually do have a fair amount of books. Like I've got a lot of Isaac Asimov that I still want to get through. I haven't read all of the Foundation books, and that makes me sad. But I mean, I read a lot of comics.
Yeah.
That doesn't make anything better though.
Well, so say she sends you an article and you find 3 things wrong with it, right? This guy that's claiming to be a doctor was really a used car sales guy, or whatever, his belief is based on this proposition, but that's not factually correct. Are you able to send her back 3 sentences that goes, hey, here's the holes in this?
Yeah, I've sent her paragraphs. I've talked to her directly about it. Like because right now I live with them still, so I walk up to her and I'll be like, "Hey, this is what I find wrong with this." And I'll tell her like straight up, "Hey, this is why I don't agree with whatever this is saying." And there are pretty much 2 stock responses: either you're being closed-minded, is what she'll say back to me, which is just pretty ironic, or the other one is going to be like she'll come up to me or she'll say, "I don't know, I haven't looked into that," which is. I mean, at least that's fair, but
but it's a weird thing of just saying I'm going to believe this. I'm going to be right no matter what you bring to me. Right. It's not an honest engagement.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like statistics sometimes when people want to believe one certain statistics that backs up their argument. But then once you prove it wrong, or once there's enough evidence, then they still stick on that original statistic that they saw, which is wrong. But
can I say one thing that I think explains mass shooters?
Okay.
I think it's just we have so many freaking people on Earth that once you get 1 million people, there's going to be some defect rate. Somebody's going to be a genius. Somebody's going to be a really great person. Somebody's going to be a shitty person. Out of 1 million people, there's going to be somebody with a broken brain. And we see it, right? We see people that are developmentally challenged. We see people that are just oddballs, right? You can have every flavor and every variety of a person out of 1 million people.
The statistical number that I disagree with, that train of thought. I would kind of think similarly. I would agree with that. With the one statistics that I saw is if you look at, I think it was Norway, Australia, Germany, or actually, you look at the list of ratio of people to mass shootings.
Yes.
And America is like 17 times bigger than any other country. We're in a huge outlier.
Yeah, we have a lot more guns, though.
So then there could be something. Maybe there's some statistics in that, which I don't know how to extrapolate.
Yeah, I think America's very good at when somebody snaps or when somebody's mind is not normal. Then mass shooting is a route that they end up taking, right? In some places you can't take that route, right? If you can't get your hands on a gun, there's no way you can do a mass shooting, right? Here, it's super easy to get guns compared to most places in the world. This is probably the easiest place in the world to get guns. Is there an easier place on Earth to get guns than the US of A?
I mean, at one point Australia was, but they had the mass shooting. They had a bunch of mass shootings. They had a major one, and then they pretty much went no more guns. And the Australian people were like, "That's kind of fair," and that was kind of where it ended.
But then, like Switzerland, every person gets gun training, and they get to keep that gun if they want to.
Yeah. So Switzerland may be a much more better adjusted society, but also, what's the population?
Well, I did it by ratio, so not by count.
Yeah, so they have a lower ratio, so they have they're less. Yeah, there's less strain and stress on people. There's better mental health.
Yeah.
Right. If you can catch people that are having mental problems early, right, that's good, and help them somehow. Who doesn't want that, right?
No, I do.
Republicans, yeah.
A random thought. Let's talk about what's the good things about religion. I don't know if we have much, but
Community.
I think there is a.
You ever been to a donut social? It's freaking fun. You get donuts and you talk to people.
That's Catholic Church for you in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I didn't. So they have a thing called Donut Circle, and they do it once a week or something.
Social.
Donut
Sunday.
Social.
Every Sunday you have after church. They bring donuts, and you get to go afterwards and just eat a donut with everybody.
Oh, okay.
What's more American than donuts?
Got it.
And guns.
Bacon. I don't know.
You have bacon on your donuts.
Yeah, exactly.
Growing up, and I still want to say this statement. I guess I'll say this statement first, and I'll try to explain it. I think religion has morality built into it. Now, I'm going to back up and say the definition of morality is very, it's different.
Right. We should stone virgins. Wait,
Yeah.
no, that's how it goes. Stone.
But
If you marry somebody who's not a virgin, then you stone them.
I think as I know I agree with where you're going with that, and I'm gonna attack that statement later. But growing up and growing up, I believe that I felt I saw that in religion.
Yeah.
I was young and dumb, I guess. And as I grew older, I still think
The 10 Commandments are better, more good than bad.
that might be a good way to say it. When you meet somebody, I'm trying to think of how to explain this.
Don't kill them. Don't try to steal their wife.
When I meet a religious person, usually it's Christianity. Often it's Christianity for me, and they do speak of morality, that they want to do well to their community. They want to do well for the world. But
The intentions are all good.
yeah, the intentions, it's as if they say their intentions are good, but then their actions, they don't think about their actions. They don't think about the long-term ramifications of their actions. And they don't think about, say, the long-term thought of, okay, well, if we don't believe, whether it be evolution, there's long-term ramifications if you don't allow science to help your community, if that makes sense. Meaning,
No, but God will take care of us. We don't need the science.
yeah. So I would say, jumping back, I think a positive thing about religion, if I had to say one,
Yeah.
I think my only positive is at a high level, sometimes religion does try to be moral.
It's trying to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's true of people too, though. I think that's kind of the difference, is that
Ah.
religion in and of itself is its own force and its own ideology and its own morality.
Yeah.
But the people that surround it are the ones that actually decide what is and isn't moral, and the people around it actually decide whether, like, what they. Because that's the thing, we don't believe in Leviticus anymore. A lot of people aren't killing people for wearing different fabrics, or mixed fabrics rather. They're not selling their daughters into slavery. There's not that's not a thing in at least Western cultures and things anymore. And that's big. Like I think that's a big point to talk about, is morality in general has evolved, even if you're talking about religion, just because in general it is becoming. I think we have this idea of morality where, when you're talking about religion, you have the 10 Commandments, you have but people talk about them in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
They can mean anything. Some people don't believe that homosexuality is right. Some people believe it's okay. Some people believe it's, and it entirely depends on what religious person you're talking to in that kind of way. Whereas, I guess for me, morality would be, I would base it off of a specific goal, which is in and of itself subjective. But once you have the goal in mind, it becomes an objective way of evaluating what is and isn't moral. So you could say, I would say, again, with the whole watching those debates and things, they talk a lot about morality, and they put it very succinctly, better than I think I could ever do. But you start with something, say, like well-being, where you're looking at what is going to increase the net positive for society and the net positive for people's health and well-being in general. And murder's not one of those, so murder's out. And at the same time,
Murder bad.
yeah. So you have to prove what is and isn't good for people, and I think that's kind of that's yeah. I mean, but there's a lot of other ways to evaluate it, and I think different people have different ways of putting it. But I think religion in and of itself, I don't think is this objective morality, arbiter of truth, which because I think it changes just as much as anything else does, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't consider when they're in religion. Is that
so? Stepping back to Lem's question, do you see is there any good thing about religion?
Oh yeah,
just as we know it in America.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, well, as we know it currently in America, it depends on what lines you're talking about, because I would say like evangelical Christian, lines right now they're where conservative values have kind of stemmed from, and that's where the whole, I think, like Republican Party has kind of found their feet is in the evangelical community. And whereas Catholics are kind of half and half. You have some of them that are following that same kind of vein, and you have some of them that are more new age. Like I have a friend who is Catholic, and he's very he's very okay with certain things. He's and I will say, like, there's a detachment now with Catholics from following the Pope, because the Pope has now said, like, homosexuality is okay. They're not evil, they're people, kind of a thing. And a lot of Catholics have turned away from that kind of stuff. So I mean, it depends on where you're talking about, but religion can be a net good for people, depending. And I'm not talking about prayer, because prayer is one of those things that, I mean, we have bad evidential support for in being, good for people's health. Because studies do show that if you pray for somebody and they know that you're praying for them, they tend to perform worse health-wise.
And stop trying.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Maybe it's performance anxiety. Like, we don't exactly know, but it's like, it's sad. It's like,
wait.
Yeah.
So So you're saying people that don't believe, and if they're in a medically bad, I hope I understood you correctly.
So if Liem gets a surgery and he's in the recovery room and he knows that I'm praying for him, he's not going to recover as well statistically.
Yes.
That's a hilarious statistic.
You got to fight, bro.
Exactly. Like, so I guess if you have an enemy, I don't pray for him.
Pray the shit out of this.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's the sad reality. Is like, I mean, part of it might just be psychology, but it's reality is, I think religion can be a net positive for people. It just depends on how you're using it. And
I'm imagining somehow, I think both Em and I started the question at kind of like a high level.
No, it's your question.
A high level is religion. Is there anything good in religion?
Yeah,
but
donuts.
Then I think the problem is, I think all three of us are thinking deeply. Once you say something's good, there's so many other ramifications. There's so many things that lead outside of that one, what we're saying that one good thing is. So I think we're thinking too far, but I think that's the nature of this conversation. We're trying to.
I could tell you, church youth groups are intoxicating. When you're a teenager and you're struggling through high school, and some nice person invites you over to the church youth group, and you get to go do fun activities, and you got friends all of a sudden now. Everybody's super nice. Nobody's bullying you, and they're the nicest people on earth. And they're like, "Hey, I'm in a group now, and hey, we're gonna go eat. Awesome! Like, this is so cool. Like, and then they want me to come back next week, and I got something to do. And there's a Bible study. We're in a book club now. We get to all read the same book, and we talk about the book. And it's so alluring to have this group of friendship, and you're welcomed in, and it's so wonderful. And it catches you at that age where you're developing, right? You're growing, you're turning into an adult, you're finding your independence, you're finding your rebellion, you're struggling with all these emotions and changes and chemistry in your body. So it's an interesting thing that I don't know. I went to high school in Bangkok, and there was the Bible kids, and they were my friends, They were nice to everybody. They were the coolest kids, right? So it was such a wonderful thing. I was happy to be their friends, but somehow I didn't get sucked into the beliefs. So it's an odd thing.
It's probably, I'm just throwing out some random thoughts. If humans, we have this tribalistic nature in us.
Mm-hmm.
So if religion stereotypically creates a tribe that accepts others with the...
Unless you're Mexican.
Why Mexican?
Well, because
I'm
America's.
Mexican.
Oh, hey, John's Mexican.
Did I not say that? I'm half Mexican.
No, you don't sound Mexican at all.
Not at all. No, I look white too. That's another problem.
Okay, I was gonna make a joke, but I can't ask you what your last name is. No, I'm making a joke about American religion is typically very Christian, evangelical, very white, very racist, very anti-Mexican immigration. That was the joke I was making.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. I was gonna say the funny thing is my mom is Mexican and she's also very anti-immigration.
Yeah,
It's very interesting. I mean, yeah, I mean, my uncle was the opposite. He was he lived with us for a while. I remember he was very liberal and a big guy, big, hefty, morbidly obese man. But he was a cool guy. Gave me my first comic. Really, really nice. Just, but I mean, that's the thing is my mom got pissed at him or got pissed at my sister for giving him pot at one point. And that was
your sister gave your uncle pot?
Yeah, exactly. He asked for it. He was like, you smoking? Can I smoke some? Yeah. And my sister gave it to him. My mom was like, why would you give that to him? He's got an addictive personality. And my sister was like, I don't know. Exactly.
Wait, why did he want it? Did he have joint pain or something?
I mean, he had a lot of things wrong. He was, like I said, morbidly obese. I mean, okay. you don't get away with having no health issues on that.
Yeah.
But so, I mean,
yeah. So that's a fascinating fact. If your mother is she was born in Mexico, or has so being born in another country and then coming to America and becoming an American and then being anti-immigration is an incredible stance to take on.
Oh yeah. For sure. I mean, I don't know how you get there, honestly, but I mean, she made it there, and I guess that's the important part. But yes, I mean, as far as I'm not entirely sure how someone goes from that to that, but I mean, you see them all over the place too. There's people that are like that from different countries, like all the time coming in. And then, it's more of, I think there's this whole thing you get convinced of, I mean. Again, going back to conservatives and Republicans, it's you get this whole idea that immigration's bad because we're bringing in people that are bad as coming into this nation, because you do hear about bad things from time to time. You hear about human trafficking, you hear about drugs, you hear about, I mean, drugs that we can get into later, but as far as like human trafficking goes, that's terrible. But that's the thing is, most people aren't doing that. I mean, putting kids into cages because they're coming across the border isn't exactly conducive to, a healthy relationship with other countries in the first place anyways. But I mean, we should be more welcoming, I think, because you can get a lot more benefit out of people coming to our country than not, I feel like.
Oh, this is a freaking nation of immigrants.
Yeah, I mean,
there ain't nobody here that ain't a freaking immigrant. It's insanity.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I can't really, I don't know what else to say about like my mom being that way. I have no idea how it got to there. But to be fair, I don't know how they got to a lot of the ideas that they have now.
Is there a lot of Fox News on the television at your house there?
Oh, they're past that. Fox News was a thing for a long time, but I mean, with the whole Trump presidency and everything, I don't know if you guys have heard of OAN. One American News, I believe it's called, something like that. Oh, it is essentially, it's the biggest propaganda. Like, it's worse than Fox. I mean, Fox is pretty bad. You see Fox all the time, and it's very entertainment heavy laden. They're just trying to get viewers, and a lot of it is just pulling in the people that are going to be watching their shows. But then OAN is even like worse. They're just spouting conspiracy theories. They're doing it, and Trump touted them the entire time his presidency was going on. So I don't know if my parents.
This is an internet news channel. Is that what it is?
No, it's I think it's an actual like TV channel. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't actually watched it myself, other than like little clips. But the clips I've seen have been like some of the most like dishonest. Like it's like crazy stuff. But I mean, even then, I don't know how much my parents actually watch news anymore. I think they've gone even past that. I think they're to the point where they mostly just go on Facebook, look at QAnon posts, and then tell me about them. And it's like,
got the answer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's funny when you see like articles and videos coming from like, websites that are only app based. Like you have to watch them on your phone. Like I remember watching I walked into my parents watching a documentary that was based around like it was in an app, and they had to like use their phone on the TV to watch it. And I was like, this seems way more involved than it should be to watch something that should be true if you guys are believing this kind of thing. And it's one of those things that that just seems way too way too much work just to watch one thing that.
Do you think there's a element of not being able to separate entertainment from belief or reality?
That's a good question, but I honestly feel like it's not as much that as it is not being able to to accept responsibility and to admit when you're wrong. I think that's a bigger part of it than the entertainment in itself. I mean, I'm not to say that entertainment isn't a part of it. I mean, I think we all kind of get to that point where we have this dissociation between reality and what is, fantasy. And that's because, fantasy just seems so much better. Let's be honest. I mean, who really wants to live in this world? I'd love to be in Lord of the Rings, make me a hobbit. I don't care.
On that, go ahead. When you're saying to not admit when you're wrong, is there a specific story you had in mind or something that was triggered in your mind when you said that?
Articles.
Is it that?
I mean, it's a lot of different things. I mean, it's like the fact that instead of listening to doctors, my dad's willing to say that he knows more than doctors. It's instead of listening to scientists, evolution doesn't exist. It's those types of things where they're more willing to believe these crazier things than they are willing to believe the thing where the bulk of evidence is leading.
So you're in a rural area, right? You're not in a major city.
Yeah, right now, yeah.
So as far as your parents' daily life, is there? I mean, they don't really come in contact with the city, right? So they'll stay. I mean, you're not around a lot of people, right? So who is? It's just meet other people in the town, right?
I mean, they don't even. Yeah. Sorry.
They don't even socialize that much.
I mean, they have friends, but their friends only conform to their beliefs, and they usually will go to them, or I mean, rarely they'll come to us. But we know who they are. I know who they are. They're the same kind of people that my parents are. They.
Well, so in a very insulated way, you could live in your own fantasy and not engage with the outside world, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, echo chambers are a thing, and I mean that's.
I think you could do that in a city. I mean, it doesn't matter whether in a rural area.
It's harder to do, yeah.
Sure.
If you go to work and you happen to work in an office where there's just 5 people, you go to work, you come home, you sit on the computer, you watch Netflix, and
no. But if I step out my front door, I got an Ethiopian family living next door, and this Jamaican dude that lives across the street, and then over on the left side is some white people, and then on our left is some Asian people. Right, so just out my front door when I'm taking the trash out, I'm seeing multiculturalism right here, right? And then I'm gonna go to the store, and I'm gonna see 100 more people than you'll see in a small town, right? I'm not gonna see Jim, the guy at the store. I'm gonna see 100 people around, right? So there's this certain exposure that happens when you're in a city, right? I'm gonna go to the university for an event and see all these professors and see all these students and see all these people learning stuff, right? I'm gonna drive by a radio telescope over by UNLV, right? I'm gonna see solar panels everywhere. And that's gonna make me think about what the heck is a solar panel? How does that work? Right? Is there some science behind a solar panel? Oh, okay. If you do all this correctly, it pumps out electricity and that can power up a cell phone. So there's this different engagement in a vibrant, multicultural city, I think.
I'm going to go on a tangent and try to connect it. So Rhett and Link from Good Mythical Morning, they have a YouTube channel that's 18 million subscribers. They, about 3 or 4 years ago, they released on the internet that they left faith and they told their whole story. I think it was a 2-hour podcast explaining their path, their story, going from North Carolina, having religion in their life, and them wanting to be a part of I don't think they wanted to do missionaries, and they really wanted to help the church. They came to Hollywood, California with their YouTube's channel, And one thing that made me connect when you said the story of being in a city, you're seeing a lot of things, so you're less likely to be either racist or potentially even religious. So I think it was Rhett, he said, sure, our stories, it could make a lot of religious people think, oh, those boys went to California, and just like most other people that do that, they leave religion because they went to California. And he was like,
The devil got him.
Exactly. So he said his questions of faith started back in North Carolina. It didn't happen. It unfortunately, he opened up when he was in California about it, but it started in North Carolina for him. So it was, he happened to see some of the things in California that made him question religion, but it already started back in North Carolina. But anyways, I think what I was connecting with the story was, I think it's unfortunate if people think going to California makes you less racist or less religious. It's unfortunate if they think that's.
I think exposure to the world can help.
Oh yeah.
Right. So have you ever traveled to another country? Have you seen how other people live? Have you ever seen, if you go to Mexico, they're largely Catholic, but are they just as welcoming and just as friendly and just as caring about your well-being? Right. Will they share a meal with you? Are they going to help you if you're stranded on the side of the road? Is it all that different? Or are they just...
sorry, I was going
to...
No,
go for it. Yeah.
I was just going to say, so I mean, as far as that goes, I mean, I feel like that's a big thing too, is I think currently we have this huge disconnect because people don't experience those things. We don't have enough money to go outside the nation currently. Like most people don't make that kind of money anymore to be able to take vacations and go somewhere crazy. So, I mean, people have this disconnect where they're not even watching videos about other cultures. They're hearing things about cultures. And so there's this disconnect of, they're not people. They're bad people. They're not, they're not this, they're that. So you don't see the communities, you see the individuals, you see these bad nuts that are coming through, and then you think it's like one bad apple spoils the bunch. Well, no, it doesn't. One bad apple is bad apple. And the reality is, when you're talking about people, it's a separate issue. People don't spoil, one person doesn't spoil an entire group, and a group is spoiled by their own beliefs, actions, and inability to accept mistakes. And I think I accept change is a big one too.
Yeah.
And so when it comes down to it, like seeing, even just watch, like I watch videos about other cultures and like seeing how people, like I love looking at videos about like, Irish culture, Japanese culture, or, just around the world kind of stuff. Cause I'm not going anywhere. Like I don't make the money for that, but I like to see how other people live and like what they have to say about, their life and how they think about certain things. Cause culturally everyone's different. And the reality is being different doesn't mean you're bad.
Well,
being different is...
That's a crazy viewpoint because Americans, I mean, not in a bad way. I understand what you're saying. What's crazy about it is that Americans have more access and more ability to travel around the world than most countries, right? We are some of the most lucky. We are some of the richest people on earth. And yet we feel like I can't afford to fly to another country and have a vacation. What the fuck is that? When in reality, we are the most likely or the most possible to have that. And so what I think is the cause of that is you're being squeezed too hard. The rich take from the poor in this country systematically. It just keeps getting rigged so that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer.
I'll add on to that. I agree. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I'll add on, unfortunately, whatever financial education that is in America, where we don't teach, we're not doing a good job of teaching our children, hey, don't go buy that car that's a depreciating asset. Don't go buy that BMW. Don't go spend that money on that Gucci, Louis Vuitton bag, shoes, watch, whatever. There's a culture of entertainment through Hollywood, through advertising, and unfortunately, those aren't. There's not. I don't think there's
consumerism.
Yeah, I don't think it's a conspiracy theory thing at all. I think it's just consumerism, probably through corporations that made money, that figured out they could buy corporate, or they could buy lobbyists or whatever with their all their big money. So it's just a evolving bad circle for bad. I don't know how better to explain it. In America, consumerism is pushed and causing.
Our hyper-capitalism makes us poor?
okay, hyper capitalism, but also the squeezing, that plus the squeezing from.
Yeah, if our politicians were good and honest and cared about us and tried to help us, then it'd be a different world.
So add all that together, even though Americans are super rich, they're not traveling as much nowadays. And even in the statistics, people used to travel even from city to city, state to state to find different jobs. That's That's not happening as much nowadays. The statistics is going down for that too.
Oh, I don't want to work. Come on.
Well,
Drive to another city to find a job? Get out of here.
they used to drive to different cities to get better wages, better salaries, but that's not happening nowadays.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to talk about the bad things of religion, which we already kind of talked quite a bit about it, but let's point out some.
I want to share a quick story. Last night, I have a meetup group. And so people in their 20s and 30s, it's a social group. We get together and hang out, right? So I just plan stuff like happy hours and coffee shops. And last night we met up at a place in Vegas called the Bacon Bar. And it's like, hey, let's go have bacon-themed food and have some beers and stuff, right? I was disappointed because they didn't have bacon-flavored beer or bacon beer of any kind. I feel like if you're a bacon bar, you should have some kind of freaking bacon beer. That aside, afterwards, they're like, hey, that was cool. Let's go down to Oddfellows, which is like kind of a hip place downtown, down by Fremont Street. And so I had never been there. I knew my buddy was hanging out there a lot. Actually, Scott from the podcast. So he loves Oddfellows. So I go down there expecting like a brewery, kind of place, but it's more like a nightclub. It's this really like offbeat, off the wall, kind of counterculture, be whoever you want to be. If you got a wild costume, you can wear a wild costume. You can, if you want to wear makeup, you can do whatever you want in this strange club, right? But it's like a nightclub. It's got 3 rooms, DJs and stuff. And we walk in, and a young man, comes up and goes, "Excuse me, you are beautiful. I want you to have a wonderful night, and I think you are so hot." And I was like, "Well, thank you. That's nice." I have, and it's weird because he came from such a genuine place, right? But I think most men in America would be struggling with getting a compliment from a gay man, right? And I luckily not the first time I've experienced that, but I'll take it as a freaking compliment because women don't go out of their way to tell me when I think I'm looking good. So I gotta assume.
Gotta take it where you can, man.
I gotta hope I'm doing something right. But
so I have a question though. I'm sorry, this is slightly off topic. I mean, it's kind of weirdly on topic as well, though. But so there's this. I used to go to Vegas all the time when I was a kid. I have family over there. And there's this place outside of Vegas. I remember it being like this Italian place, like in a strip mall, I think, if I remember correctly. And I can't remember the name of it anymore. And I was wondering if you guys might know, but they had this pasta specifically, and this is why I think you guys might know it if you've been there. It was called the Priest Killer. And it was supposedly they had made food for like people in Rome and in Italy, and I don't know the name of this place, but I swear I
remember it being old school Italian places. Was it Nora's?
I honestly can't remember. I just remember it being like some of the best Italian food I've ever had, and I can never remember it again.
Oh, maybe bootlegger.
I was just thinking about
bootleggers. Is that new? Well,
I don't know. I mean, you're talking to 28-year-old, so go back 10 years.
Yeah, really. I mean, this was like, actually, I think this was about 15 years ago.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of Italian joints that are around 15 years ago.
Yeah, really. I mean, yeah, this one was, Priest Killer is what I remember. The Priest Killer and the Pope Killer was like a dish.
Was the idea it was so much pasta that it would kill you?
I think what I remember it's being
it was so sinfully good.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think they made food for like cardinals and stuff. They used to live in Italy and all this stuff, and then they moved to America and just kept the names. Like
that's fun.
This one, oh no, this one says. I don't think this is it. This looks like a newer restaurant.
This looks.
I'm trying to Google it for you. I'm not.
Looks like a strip joint.
No, you're good. You're good. I was wondering because I was like, I swear I remember this place. Maybe I was like in a dream or something, but I swear this place existed. Like for some reason. All right, I was wondering. That's all.
But I was thinking of my story in an exposure sense, right? I'm exposed to all these different people with wild ideas and different lifestyles and different lives. In that, I lose my discrimination, right? I don't think of other people and enemies and other tribes and they're from that country and that group, right? it's just people are people, right? This guy was having a good night, and he wanted to give me a compliment, so it didn't offend my masculinity at all. Like, wish I was interested, but sorry, dude. We didn't even get that far. He just went on and had his night, and I was out on the dance floor, had enough drinks in me to start dancing, and just people having a good time. So it's when you mix in with the city, mix in with the culture, you start to break down a lot of those barriers, I think.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting thing that happened last night. So every day you go out into the city, you have a chance to open your eyes a little more, or meet somebody from Bulgaria, right? Or meet somebody from wherever. I know a Polish guy, right? So I know I can keep going, right? I know a doctor that was originally from Africa. Great guy, right? So there's a whole interesting world, and it comes to America, but if you're in an isolated or secluded place, you don't get that exposure.
Yeah. And or if you close your mind too. Like
Yeah.
other people could meet those same people, and yet if their mind is closed, it's probably tougher. But at least there's a chance of them opening up and changing their mind.
Yeah. You know what's another thing I see around Vegas too is this kind of asshole redneck culture where, like, I'm gonna drive a big fucking truck and I'm gonna try to make it blow coal. What do they call it? Roll and smoke.
Roll coal.
Yeah, like I'm gonna try to make black exhaust come out of my truck. I'm gonna have all these whatever political stickers on it. So I'm gonna declare to everybody, I'm gonna fly an American flag, and we've taken the American flag as a sign of this group, this anti-multiculturalism, and I'm just gonna be the most obnoxious redneck I can be, right? And it's weird when they're driving a Tundra because that's a Japanese truck. And I don't get it. Like, you are so dumb. Like, if you're going to be an asshole American, drive a fucking American truck.
That's a good point. I mean, no, it's a good point. It's a good point. I mean, really, you're not going around driving a Chrysler out there, like, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, anyways, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think you're right though, and I will say it's kind of weird. I'm from a more insular community, I would say. Like, the area I grew up in was predominantly white, but I would hope I'm not racist. I mean, shit, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I can't. You can't say that about yourself, right? Like, I'm not going to be like, I've never said anything. I've never thought things like, I try my best to not be a certain way, and I've got friends that are different races. One of my best friends is Filipino. He's a really cool guy. Just got in a relationship, but
That means you're not going to see him again.
Nah, it was a couple months. I'm not going to lie, but no, he's still one of my best friends, one of my oldest friends. And then at the same time, I've got friends that are, a lot of friends that are white, and then I've met people at work that are, other races, and at the same time, I've never thought differently of them than I think of anyone else. And most of them just kind of like, where's your accent from? And that's mostly everything. I mean,
so you have Mexican heritage, but you said that physically you appear just Caucasian.
Oh yeah, I'm as white passing as they come. I mean, I look like I'm Irish to some degree.
Yeah.
I've even got the stocky build. Like, I probably went and got into a bar fight last night, kind of a thing. But yeah, I mean, it's strange because I definitely am very proud of my Mexican heritage. I'm proud that I am Mexican, and I love learning about Mexican culture.
Yeah.
But there's this part of me that I'm like, I don't know if I should be like, if I almost feel bad learning about my own culture to some degree, because I feel like someone's going to come up to me and say like, should you be really talking like that, or should you be acting that way, kind of thing. And I'm like,
wait, let's dig into that. You say you feel bad about learning about the Mexican culture?
It's this weird, I don't know, I can't exactly explain it. There's this thought process where I'm like, I see myself in the mirror and I'm like, am I really okay learning the things about my own culture? I don't know. I feel like, and I mean, not that I don't, but
you feel like a fake or what?
Kind of it almost feels like I'm doing it superfluously, kind of a thing. Like, I'm doing it just because I want to act like I'm worldly or more cultured than I am. But I mean, but I do like learning about my culture. Like, I wish I did celebrate Day of the Dead and stuff more, or, I mean, I will say that I've gained more of an appreciation for Mexican food.
Yeah.
To be honest, my mom's not the greatest cook, so growing up, she didn't make the best Mexican food. It was mostly like chicken and rice, and I was like, man, I really hate this now. but nowadays, I'm eating like pozole and pozole rojo, and that's really good stuff. And then you get to I've finally gotten good tamales. Like I always hated tamales because at least in Washington, they're just too much masa in them. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think you should ever be ashamed or afraid to learn about a home culture, right? I mean, you could like to step it back, like you could just be interested in a random place, right? You go, hey, you know what? Zimbabwe seems like an interesting place. I'm really curious about everything that's going on in Zimbabwe. What do they do? What do they eat, right? But in this one, you have some connection to go, you know what? My heritage, like half of my genes are from Mexico, so I have an interest in learning about Mexico, and I don't think you should ever shy away from that.
Yeah, I mean I agree with that too. Like it's one of those things where it's not so much like the rational side of me thinking that.
Yeah,
there's this part of me, I think that it's like the imposter syndrome that you get like almost when you're working a job long enough and you think, am I really supposed to be here? It's kind of that thing where I'm not exactly not understanding that I should be learning about my culture, and I love learning about my culture, but at the same time, like there's that part of me where I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh man, is that okay? Like, am I okay eating pozole rojo tonight? Like, I don't know. Should I really
fully
be
allowed to? Yes, we will give you permission. Please comment below and give John permission to be half Mexican.
Well, do you think, are you trying to take a step in the future and think on if someone were to judge you, if you were doing all this research on Mexican history and you started wearing a Mexican flag on your shoulder or something, a pin or something, others might judge you. They say, hey, you're a white guy, why are you doing that?
No, he's just going to wear Raiders gear.
Or is it that you feel that you lived a life of certain privilege that so I'm Asian, I feel that I've worked in places where white counterparts, programmers that I worked with, they got higher raises and promotions than I did. So are you somehow, I don't know, I'm just throwing ideas out there. Are you afraid to dive into Mexican history or culture because you feel that you lived a life of a certain privilege here? Is that?
I think maybe part of that, like I would say it's more of an unconscious thing than it is like a conscious thing. Like I'm not making the decision to feel a certain way as much as I just kind of every once in a while get that feeling, and I'm like, is that okay? Like I don't know, but it's not like I'm sitting here like I think I'm a bad person and I think I need to stop. Like I mean I try my best. I hope I'm not a bad person. I'm not going to say I'm a great person. I mean I'm a person. I'm just as human as they come. Yeah. I mean hopefully. Yeah. I don't know how much I've been built, but I know. I mean, as far as that goes, it's just one of those things. Yeah, it's an unconscious feeling that I don't mean to feel, and I don't mean to like go in. It really like, it's not like it's not exactly guilt as it is like I said, like imposter syndrome, where you almost feel like, am I supposed to be okay doing this? And so in the end, like if I were to say wear a flag and someone came up to me and said something, I'd probably tell them, I'm like, my mom was born in Mexico and I'm Mexican, like proudly Mexican. I love my heritage. I love the food especially, but I mean, I like food in general. So, I mean, that's not really saying much, but, but yeah, so, I mean, as far as that goes, it's mostly just this weird unconscious thing that I get from, looking a certain way, but actually being a different way. And I do wish my culture, I would say growing up, I wish I learned more and was more active about, especially learning Spanish, because I mean, I currently I work talking with people that speak Spanish, and I can, I speak broken Spanish as much as I can, but it's not like I'm fluent.
Yeah.
I know a lot of curse words, I'll be honest, but
that's where it doesn't
get me. Yeah, exactly. I don't get very far in Mexico that way. So, like,
you can't walk around cussing at people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is funny though, hearing the amount of curses that come out of truck drivers' mouths. I mean, you don't expect it. Like, so I mean, it's fun to learn, but at the same time, you have that whole thing. Yeah. So
random thought. I'm Vietnamese American. I feel like in America, there's, like I mentioned earlier, where I've as a programmer, I've seen white coworkers get promotions and pay salary promotions when I felt I should have deserved it. But then on the flip side, when I go to Vietnam, I'm too American to kind of get some of the perks of being Vietnamese, if that makes sense. Meaning they will talk amongst themselves like, "Oh, that's an American. He won't understand our culture," or don't involve him on these. Whether I don't think it's events, but culturally they may keep to themselves more and not open up to me as much. So it kind of sucks. It's just, I'm just randomly speaking, without really much thought, that I don't get the benefits of certain things in America, and I don't get some of the benefits of certain things in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and that's, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a problem when you see that kind of systemic stuff happen.
Yes.
It does feel like, yeah, I mean, and that's, I feel bad because that is one thing I can't talk on that really. I'm white, like I said, but I understand that like that does happen a lot. And I've been fortunate enough that the places I have worked have been a very hefty mix of different cultures and races. Like in the last place I worked, we had like most of the bosses that I had were either Mexican or they were African. And like we had like two that were white, but beyond that it was like 6 or 7 others that were not. And I think that was interesting. But the farther up you looked, the more you saw like more white people like up the chain. The head of the warehouse was white. His boss was black, but the boss above him was white. The CEO is white. The people below him directly are white, like all of them.
Wait, all this woke talk is true?
I mean, it's some degree. It depends on where you're talking about, but I mean, I would say, yeah, for sure. I think, and especially, I would say with the whole police stuff coming around, the last 5 years, a lot of the information that came out about, I think there was a hack that like they showed a police station having communications with other, stations in this, I forget what state, but they had these communications where they were talking about how they were planning on arresting like black people more often than not. And it was this weird thing where they were like, it definitely was like, why would you talk about this? Why would this be like a conversation to be like, why we should do this more often? Like, what is that helping? What is that going to do for, your work? I mean, it's crazy to me. But I mean, yeah, like I said, I can't talk too much on that kind of stuff because I haven't experienced it in the same way.
That's a hard one to address without context.
Exactly. I know that's rough. It's rough for me. Like I've seen a lot of it, and I'm glad to say that I support, obviously I support that being ended, like that kind of stuff not coming, the forefront. I think maybe reevaluating how the police work and how they are. I think that's important too. Like, being able to change our current law system might be a good idea. So I mean, with like I said, with Reaganomics coming back to that, you have the whole prison system being based around, people that had drug offenses, having the smallest amount of weed or whatever drugs being put in prison for decades. And it's really just this whole thing about making a profit in prison for the minimal amount of wages they can give, like pennies to the dollar, kind of a thing. And so it's kind of crazy, but yeah, I mean, I support a lot of the stuff that has to do with rehabilitation more so than prisons at this point.
Yeah,
I'd rather have that.
That's a very scientifically educated viewpoint to have.
So we got about less than 15 minutes till final questions, but do we want to kind of close out with kind of thoughts on the topic of religion? Is there a message that we would hope people walk away?
I feel like we touched on all of the keywords that will get this podcast banned from advertising on YouTube.
So whatever you say, it doesn't matter.
Did we miss anything?
Did we miss anything?
That'll
Yeah.
get us banned.
Or should we summarize anything that we want to say?
Yeah. How are you feeling, John? Is there anything we missed that you wanted to share with the audience?
I know you're going to talk about like the bad stuff about religion, and the one thing I really wanted to say about that was I think this is probably my most I don't know if I want to say extreme view, but like I would say that there's not a lot religion brings to the table that can't be given or gotten outside of religion that is good for somebody, like you can find community in other places. Like people, I go to D&D every weekend, with a bunch of friends, or you can go to community meetups. They have those all over different cities, or different towns. You can find them where they have those types of things. If you want, you want to find the love somewhere, I mean, you got to go and find it yourself, kind of a thing. And I think that's kind of the rough thing with religion. Yeah, like it brings this community that you can easily find, but you can't find, it's not like you can't find that other places. And that's kind of one of those things. Like I think, yeah, a lot of the stuff that you see with religion, it can be given to you in other places, or you can find it in other more fulfilling ways sometimes.
I have kind of a story connected with that. So connected to, there's morality beyond, outside of religion. Emmett knows me. I almost spend too much time thinking about every word I say, every action that I do to try to be a moral person. I just have this problem where I want to positively affect the small bubble around me. But so I don't think I have a morality issue. I worked with this manager who was very religious, and he must have had a bone to pick with me because he knew I wasn't religious, but we didn't talk about religion at work pretty much never. There was a few sentences he would say here and there, and it was jabs at me. And one of the ones that stuck out that didn't make sense to me, I didn't have an answer at the time I didn't have a quick comeback on it. There was some news article that came up right before lunch. We were all going to lunch on a Friday, I think it was, and some news article about some pornography house got busted, raided for illegal something.
Wait, what's a pornography house?
I think they're publishers of pornography. They're
okay. The house of a publisher.
Yeah. So this manager says to me, like, he said something like, "Oh, how's not being religious?" What was it? I forget the wording. The meaning that he said was, he was trying to say, "Oh, you're not religious. This is your problem. Because of you and your people, this happened." Yeah. I was so, it felt so, to me, it felt like he made such a stupid connection that I didn't have a comeback.
You're so wrong in so many ways. I don't even know how to.
I'm such a moral person. You think that just because I don't believe in religion, you think I've lost all morality, and those people aren't even connected to me. But
yeah,
he was trying to say, by not believing in religion, me and my people do things like that. We do illegal acts of pornography.
These porn house.
Yeah.
Oh, it was illegal porn.
They were doing something illegal.
I missed that part. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I don't really have a point with that story. Go ahead, John.
I was just gonna. It's a good way of ending it.
Yes.
I was just gonna say, like, adding on to things, like, as far as, talking about, it reminds me of like Steve Harvey, that whole clip of him, on the internet where it was in an interview with, I think, Ellen DeGeneres or somebody, I don't remember who, but he was talking about, I don't understand atheists because I don't understand their moral barometer. And I think that's where it comes in, is people don't understand where your morals are coming from. They don't understand, like, how you're rationalizing things. And so that becomes part of the problem. And I think as well, like, when we talk about moral things and what religions are doing, I mean, the Catholic Church isn't exactly the most moral example, and especially with a lot of the mass graves coming out of Canada and other countries that had to do with Catholic schools, like, those are crazy. Like, I can't believe that they're going unscathed in these countries where that's being found. I mean, I think they found one recently in Canada. They had one in Ireland. They had one in just different countries of just mass graves of children that were buried next to these Catholic schools that showed signs of sexual and like violent assault, and that's crazy. And at the same time, we have this whole culture of moving priests around that have been doing things to children, and they're not going to jail. They're just going to other churches because it's easier to move somebody around than it is to rehabilitate them. And they don't really rehabilitate them, and that's a big problem. And it's something they haven't addressed a lot in the Catholic Church that I think needs to be addressed. That having those types of people and having people be rehabilitated is one thing. I'm okay with that. I'm all for that. Mm-hmm. But moving them to a different place just so they can continue their actions is not rehabilitation.
No, they were trying to hide the problem, not give them another opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm sure they told them stop.
Once.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like any.
No sex with boys. Stop it.
Oh my God. I mean, really, that's It feels like a bad parent. Just kind of like slap on the wrist. All right, don't do it again. And that's, I mean, it's rough because as someone who would love to see that get better, that religion or those people get better as a community. I mean, having that happen and having that continue to happen is just awful. And I mean, I mean, it's rough because, coming from that community, it's not like I want to see those people just fail or I want the religion to fail necessarily. I want everybody to be in a place where they're doing better, where things change and people are at it of themselves doing a lot better for themselves and by others than before. And it's sad to see that type of thing is just staying in stagnation, in those institutions. So,
all right, any closing thoughts, guys? On the topic of religion.
We live in a house. We live in a. I was going to say porn house. We live in a porn house. We live in a nation where two adults are allowed to have sex with each other freely. If one of those adults is also a man, then that's now legal. It didn't used to be very socially acceptable. If a male and a female want to have sex and one of them wants to pay the other one, then that's not legal. But if two adults want to have sex and one of them wants to pay each other and then you want to film it, then it's legal again, generally speaking. So it's a very odd set of cultural rules we've got around sex.
Yeah.
And porn houses.
Specifically, the porn houses. You gotta mention those.
Yeah.
I mean, the Playboy Mansion's still a thing, so I mean, I can't beat that bad. I mean, there's a porn mansion somewhere.
Yeah, right.
The devil lives there.
Is Hugh Hefner still alive? Actually,
no, I think he passed a few years ago. I think
didn't he?
I might be wrong.
Is the Playboy Mansion still around though?
I don't know.
I don't know.
That's a crazy question. I don't know why.
We have so much going on the internet that we don't need to watch that TV show anymore.
That place is just Mad Max Thunderdome nowadays. Anybody rides in fights like.
Well,
all right, John. Any closing thoughts on religion?
That's a good question. It's a question that I don't know if I have an answer to.
How about let's close out on the question: what do we think is actually feasible to fix in religion or in the society with religion?
I think better education, better skeptic, ability to evaluate things and understand that things aren't always as they seem. I think a big thing right now in our culture is, in the future, I think we need to focus on looking at things that are as not being black and white, but more of having gray areas, because I think that's most of the world. I think most things are in a gray area. And I think that's something that we don't consider a lot anymore is that things just aren't black and white anymore. And they never really were in the first place. And that we all have these levels and these sliding scales to things where you're not just evil. You're trying to do good for your, people I think in general are inherently good. They're trying to do good by themselves and for the people that they love. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that it's hard to know what is good for you when you're being told so many different things in this day and age in the information era. It's like people don't know how to parse through information well enough that skepticism becomes this kind of hard thing to glean, to be able to pull away from, because how do you know what you're looking at and how it's going to affect the future? How do you know whether or not that's true or not? And we're kind of getting to that point where I think we have to be teaching younger generations and I mean even older generations, hopefully, that they have to look at things a lot more skeptically and with a more discerning eye. And that's something I don't think is happening currently. And I think that's something that can happen, but we have to work towards it.
I can't believe you guys went through this whole podcast without saying Sam Harris.
Oh yeah, I mean, I actually never. I mean, I know Sam Harris, New Atheism movement, all that stuff. I just didn't. He's not someone I've really paid attention to in comparison to like other atheists. And I think maybe that's just because of my age. Like I tend to watch younger atheists aside from Matt Dillahunty, who's not exactly young anymore. But I tend to watch like Talk Heathen's a new podcast that just came out. They talk about stuff frequently. They're a lot more soft in how they talk. And I if you're looking into trying to look into that kind of stuff, I mean, Talk Heathen's a great way to start, just because they're a lot more.
You're advanced enough now. You can handle Sam Harris.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean,
I think I think on YouTube you can find one where he's with Dillahunty.
Oh yeah. He's had talks before. I know. I really would love to see. I mean, I'm sad that the amazing Randy passed away actually more recently.
Yeah, I think you would enjoy some Sam Harris debates where he debates like priests and religious figures.
Oh yeah,
yeah, they're older clips, but he really just is such a super logical person, and he is so good at speaking and expressing his points that he just destroys these religious. They're like debaters, right? They're famous speakers. And they'll go down there must be a God. The religion is the right way. My religion is the one, and he'll just the way he speaks to them. It's not at all insulting or anything. It just dismantles their faulty arguments.
Yeah, and you got Kent Hovind, you got Ken Ham, you have all those that you see, and it's interesting for sure. I mean, knowing the culture of Christianity versus secularism it's interesting to see like the two sides of that coin and seeing the arguments. Yeah. Because
Cool.
My closing thought, I'll just throw out some random thoughts. Maybe if religious people would, they just don't think that atheists or agnostic people are evil. Like, I'm atheist and or agnostic. If some religious person has some questions that they want to learn about science, software engineering or something, they could ask me, but don't innately think that I'm just evil, that I'm here with
your porn house,
with my porn house and a gun in my pocket. I'm going to shoot them or stab them or something. Like,
no, guns are good.
Oh yeah. But it's weird that, I guess when they think that people that aren't religious, they think that they're evil. That's weird to me. Like, yeah. Just because I'm not, I guess I understand that they think if you're not with God, then you're with the devil. But that's not the world that we live in.
There's a lot of hypocrisy in the most devout believers.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, that's the crazy thing to me is you definitely see that. I mean, gosh, come back to politics. But I mean, like, that's the thing is like with Republicans and conservatives, they're really going after and saying like, the other side is all pedophile and all, and then it's coming out that like they themselves have child pornography on their computers. It's like, man, you really shouldn't be talking about that then if that's the case. Like, I mean.
But isn't that the projection? Is like, if I have this evil inside me that is only constrained by my religion, then you must also be evil unconstrained.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's for sure. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
All right, let's go into the final question section.
Lightning round. All right.
What? Actually, we got a decent amount of time, so feel free to elaborate on these. What great daily habit or habits do you have?
Oh geez. I mean, are we still talking about religion or just like health wise or
just in general?
Okay. I mean, since
no religious habits at all.
I'm curious on the religious one then, or
he has to refute one article from Mama Day.
I really no. I eat pasta actually. Pastafarian all the way. I as far as habits go, I mean, I work out, be healthy, live your life. Be good. Try and be a good person. I like after my having been left by some by the person that I was with for 8.5 years. That was first thing I did. I came out of that relationship, went home, and I started just working out constantly.
Out of anger?
More just out of depression. I was like, if I can't do anything else, I might as well just start running. And I just ran every day, and I've gotten to a point where I'm pretty consistent about it. I do about 4 days a week, 45 minutes. I mean, not just running, because I'm hefty.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I'm getting there, but I've lost probably a good 70 pounds at this point.
That's
Since
awesome.
that'll happen. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm a lot lighter than I used to be, and
you are blessed.
Oh, I wish.
No, that's not Jesus's word.
So when you said religious, when I said what great daily habit do you have, when you said you asked me if it's religious, what did you have in mind?
Because we were talking about religion for 3 hours.
Okay. Well, no, I thought maybe you had something specific. Okay. Sorry.
No. I mean, as far as daily things go, I would say if we're talking about religious stuff, I like I said, I love watching podcasts or debates because it gives you these new ideas about what people believe, and you get to hear like the most common and more widely used arguments from people. And those arguments can be the thing that either changes your mind, or it can just help you to understand your ideas more, and to be a little bit more, discerning with them. If you're hearing things that are out there, you could be like, I don't believe that,
Awesome.
Yeah, but I watch Conspiracy Network so that I can refute your nonsense.
Exactly. The earth is flat because lasers don't hit boats. All right. I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. What do you know or think of cryptocurrency?
Oh, wow. I'll be honest. I don't know a lot of things, and even the stuff here I would take with a grain of salt, because I say things off the cuff that I'm sometimes not as well versed in as I would like. So obviously, look anything up I say, because I've got no idea. But cryptocurrency, I don't have any of it. I know Bitcoin and Dogecoin were a thing, and I've got no idea how any of that works. I know one of my friends uses it to buy things, and that's about all I know.
What does he buy?
Things.
Porn?
I can't not. Well, I'm not saying that, but I can't exactly say what he buys. I'm not gonna.
Better not be illegal porn.
Not.
Probably drugs, but
Yeah,
anyways, we'll jump on. Let's not get into
Wait,
that.
you just said the thing we're not supposed to say.
Yeah. No, whoa. We don't. Nobody does those. All right, calm down.
Do you think cryptocurrency is here to stay? Do you think it's going to go away? Do you think it's a fad?
Oh man, I mean, I think it's probably going to stay around. I don't think it's going to be as popular as big as people have wanted it to be, and I think that's shown it. That's been the case since it's come out. Since crypto has come out, since Bitcoin, since Doge, and all that stuff. They've had these massive, peaks, and then they've had these massive dips. And that's the thing, is I think it's just so uncertain right now with those, that we would have to have a secondary catalyst that would bring these things to the forefront of current monetary usage. I think having an outside source of income and currency is a good idea for sure. As far as countries and being stuck in these modes of payment and trade that are specific to whatever group decides this or that. But I mean, having something that is separate from that, I think, is a good idea. But it's something that needs a lot more traction and needs some kind of, like I said, catalyst to really get its feet on the ground. So.
Hey, internet, like and subscribe, because we are not financial advisors. This is not financial advice.
Yeah. Don't believe me, please.
But it's a great time to buy cryptocurrencies right now. If you wanted some, they're all on sale.
They're all on sale.
They're all on sale right now.
Bitcoin,
You get two for the price of one.
Yeah.
All right, next question. What's the biggest problem for humans, and what do we do to fix it?
Oh, it's I would say currently, I mean, the indirect problem, I would say, is the whole thing about the information age. We're in this age where information is freely given and easily obtained, but that information isn't necessarily true, accurate, or it can lead you down the wrong path. You can be misinformed so easily these days. So it's hard to know exactly what you should be and shouldn't be looking at, or what is exactly true. So I mean, I think that's a big problem right now, is that we have these massive dips where information is just these misinformation campaigns are being given, and it's making things so much harder for like anything. I mean, you could talk about climate change is people aren't believing in climate change. They don't believe in evolution. They don't believe in, all of these things that currently are, I mean, things that are problems, especially like climate change, which are even scientists are freaking out about now. They're starting to really say, like, we have to do something in the next 10 years. If we don't, this stuff could be irreversible. We couldn't do anything past that, kind of a thing. And we're not doing anything about it because half of our country, at least, is saying, well, it doesn't exist anyways, like, so I mean, that's kind of the rough part is at what point are we going to save ourselves, or can we, if this kind of thing is so prevalent in society, when it's so easy to have that happen. And
so we have so much information, but we are too stupid to figure out what's good info.
Well, I would say it's partially that, and then, I mean, not exactly stupid, but I would say it's more like we don't have, a lot of people don't have the knowledge to discern what. Yeah, but stupid's the word, but I mean, I try and use better words.
Actually, I'll word it in the sense of
dumb shit.
Our lives are getting more complicated. There's so much science on every facet. A little bit of a tangent, like in software engineering, 15 years ago, you would just be a programmer. Nowadays, there's front end programmer, back end programmer, web designer, network engineer. It is
full stack.
Yeah.
And then it's come full circle to a title called full stack, because back in the day when I was a programmer, I did everything, but then they broke it out into so many pieces for so many years, where now they have a title called full stack for people that know a little bit about every facet there. So what I mean, things are getting so complicated that I think the average human, I kind of feel like it's tough to get a decent grasp on the world.
Yeah, I agree with that.
To some degree. Not, I mean, sure, we can navigate through life and go to school, get an education, get a salary, get a car, get a house, but when it gets to the high level stuff, it's so complicated.
Yeah, you could be really smart at something and not have enough knowledge about so many other things.
Oh yeah.
If anybody out there is confused about climate destabilization, if you're not sure what's going on, or if you question whether the 9 billion people, if you question whether the 9 billion people on Earth doing all the things we do with all these chemicals is affecting the climate around us, if you're unsure about that, go to a ski resort and talk to the people at the ski resort and ask them if something fucked up is happening with their snow. That will tell you whether our climate is being destabilized.
7.7 billion.
7.7? Oh, okay. Oh, our birth rate is declining, right?
We hit max.
Do we hit max humans?
We hit peak human, which means the maximum number of births per year we've hit. The statistic estimates and predictions show that we won't be producing as many babies, but that doesn't mean we're still getting more humans per year. It's just
because we're living longer. Are we at replacement rate? It's two kids per couple, right?
Yeah. Depends on what society you're talking about. I think certain ones are actually declining in birth rate and some are not. But that's like obviously for
Japan is leading the pack.
Yeah, yeah. Japan has their declining birth rates. They have a lot larger senior rate than what's population than most other countries. Tends to be like their largest population, I think, currently. Mm-hmm. Other countries like China have been declining intentionally declining birth rates for a long time by having like the one-child policy and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Depends on what you're talking about, though. So I think in America it's I think still growing just slightly, but it is kind of evening out too.
Are you counting immigration or not counting immigration?
Well, if I count myself, I mean, yeah, it just depends on what we're talking about, I would say. But
well, so we're at 7.7 billion. Mm. Is that number going to go up for the next few years?
Oh yeah, no, it's still going up. We just won't be producing as many humans.
Gotcha.
I do like the term peak human though.
Is that why all those dudes in the trucks are rolling coal? Are they trying to prove that this doesn't hurt the environment? I don't know what the logic is there.
I think they're trying to start infertility, you know. So if they can
start what?
Infertility, if they can roll that coal in someone.
I feel like there would be an aspect that whether intentionally or unintentionally, they are saying that they don't believe in global warming. Because anybody that does, they probably at least not go over the top and start trying to blow black smoke out of the back of their car.
I thought they're trying to be obnoxious.
A little both, I would say.
I would think both. It would still,
because I've definitely, if you look at a lot of those trucks, they'll have like climate change is real stickers on the back of their truck, and then they'll blow smoke into like that one video of the person rolling coal into a whole building worth of people. Like that was pretty bad. But I mean,
I mean that should be a criminal offense, right? If you're releasing exhaust gases into a building.
Yeah. It should.
Yeah.
All right, next question's a lot easier. What's your favorite food or dish?
Oh boy.
Maybe it's harder.
Well, so questions get harder. I was a fat person for a long time. I'm still pretty fat. I mean, not as fat as I was, but you know, as far as food goes, I have these dishes that it's not favorites, I would say, but it's dishes that I order every time I go to a restaurant to gauge how good the restaurant is. And so I've got this whole thing where like if I go to an Italian restaurant, I tend to order the same dish at every first time at every one of these different restaurants. So like if I'm going to a burger place, I'm ordering the same burger. If I go to an Italian restaurant,
as a measuring stick?
Yeah, kind of like so like with Italian food, I always get Alfredo because it's really simple. And if the place can't get it right, you know it's not a good place to eat. Because if they can't make Alfredo, it's like it's pretty much like making mac and cheese. Like how much more can you really do if you can't make mac and cheese? You know,
you got to make this sauce out of cream, cheese, and Parmesan.
Pretty much it.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. I mean, if you can't do that,
is there milk in the sauce?
I think it just use cream. Okay. They might use milk to like pat it out of it, but I mean, yeah, usually. And so I mean, if you're going to like an Italian place, Alfredo. If I'm going to like a burger place, it's going to be a bacon blue cheeseburger.
Wouldn't you be happier if like you were in the mood for meatballs and you just like, I'll get the meatballs and some spaghetti?
I mean, later on, sure, but like I said, I got that measuring stick. I got to start with the Alfredo to be like, is this a good place or not?
Okay, so you're more concerned, can I go back to this place?
Yes, exactly. So once I come back, then I'll be like, okay, let's try la lasagna, you know, let's get some of that manicotti, you know, all that stuff. But I mean, as far as like other foods go, yeah, it just depends entirely. Like if I'm going to you know, Thai, it's usually I actually get curry at Thai a lot. I get like yellow chicken curry or something. I do the same thing with like I usually do the same thing with Indian food. I'll do like butter chicken instead.
Butter chicken.
Butter chicken is delicious.
So solid. Such a solid dish. And then say like
it's not buttery chicken though, right? Isn't it more like a yogurt chicken?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not really
it's
sure.
It's not
either.
Just butter chicken. It's a deceptive name, but it's tasty.
Yeah. If I'm going to like Thai, it's going to be Thai iced tea. That's for sure. I don't really care about anything else. I just want my Thai iced tea. I mean, other foods, it just depends entirely. I'll grab one basic dish, eat that, and then the next time I come back, I'll eat something entirely different.
That's a very interesting answer.
Yeah.
Well, John, thanks for being on the Limley podcast.
John, thank you.
Yeah, it was a wonderful
time with us. A pleasure. Yeah. Like and subscribe. Please.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Please push the button.
I know it. I think I did actually already. I might have.
I mean, those for our listeners more than.
Oh, no. I did it. Don't worry about it.
John can do it. You can do it too.
I'm the most important one here, all right?
Yes.
All right.
Adios.
Yeah.